Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 1 of 2019 by Senator Aaron Cheriot and Senator Isaac Maura. Of course, this will be the second reading. Thereafter, Order number 9 will be Committee of the Whole House with regards to the County Government's Retirement Scheme Bill, National Assembly Bills number 10 of 2018, brought by the Senate Majority Leader. In order number 10, of course, will be the motion adoption of the report of the Senate Sessional Committee on County Public Accounts and Investments on the Fiduciary Risk Report on Audit Issues by County Governments for the financial years 2012-2013 to 2015-2016. This, of course, will be tabled in the House by the Chairperson, Sessional Committee on County Public Accounts and Investments. Indeed, the motion seeks that the Senate adopts the report of the Senate Sessional Committee on Public Accounts and Investments on the Fiduciary Risk Report on Audit Issues by County Governments for the financial years 2012-2013 to 2015-2016, laid on the table of the Senate on Wednesday, 10th July 2019. And it will be a resumption of debate that was interrupted yesterday, the July 24th. Thereafter, a motion seeking staff rationalization in counties by Senator Dr. Agnes Zani will be tabled. The other motion will be the renaming of Murang'a University of Technology to Kenneth Matiba University of Technology. Of course, this will be the resumption of debate that was interrupted yesterday on the 23rd, on Tuesday. And the balance of time that is remaining for this particular debate on this particular motion is 1 hour, 53 minutes. In this particular motion, it seeks that aware that Murang'a University of Technology, MUT, is a chartered university established under Section 13 of the Universities Act 2012 and is positioning itself to develop a distinctive profile as a progressive and international technical university, growing its enrollment strategically. Further aware that the university is located in Murang'a County, the home county of the late politician Kenneth Njindo Matiba, who died a patriotic and political hero with numerous achievements spanning 4 decades. Indeed, the late Matiba was a prolific industrialist in hospitality and the education sector and an accomplished public servant, having served as the first indigenous African Permanent Secretary for Education in 1963, Permanent Secretary for Commerce, Chairperson of the Kenya Football Federation from 1974 to 78, a Member of Parliament for Kiharu constituency, Cabinet Minister for Health, Culture and Social Services, and Transport and Communications. Therefore, in contribution of his cardinal contribution to the political and economic growth of this country, the motion seeks to rename Murang'a University of Technology to Kenneth Matiba University of Technology. In motion number 13, of course, will be the creation of support services for members of the disciplined forces and their families, brought to the floor of the House by Senator George Haniri. Indeed, it seeks to appreciate the commitment and sacrifice by members of the disciplined forces in protecting our country from both internal and external aggression, and indeed aware of the risky and stressful environment that the officers are exposed to daily in the line of duty, combined with the increased terrorism threats at home and abroad. The motion seeks that the members of the disciplined forces, and by extension their families, are exposed to traumatic incidents both at home and abroad that manifest as living in constant fear, debilitating depression, nightmares, crippling anxiety, and thoughts of suicide, commonly referred to as post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, leaving them exposed to the stigma of society and unable to care for themselves and their families the way they could before. Indeed, the Senate calls upon the Minister of Interior and Coordination of National Government in partnership with the Minister of Defense to establish counseling and support centers. As you can see, the Speaker, Honorable Kenneth Lusaka, is already in the House. This broadcast is brought to you by the public PBU in conjunction with KBC. You can also watch us both on YouTube as well. My name is Kennedy Ariro. Please
Let
enjoy.
us pray. Almighty God, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor and blessings as your servants whom you have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic. We seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberations in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Honorable Senators, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon of visiting students and teachers from Annescence Primary School, Wasingishu County. In our ancient tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf wish them a fruitful visit. I thank you. I would also like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon of visiting students and teachers from Rukira DEB Primary School, Embu County. In our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf wish them a fruitful visit. I thank you. Senator Abshiro.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to join you in welcoming the students from Anasis, I think, Wasingishu and Embu to the Senate and to encourage them to really have an open mind as they visit with us and to say to them that I went to school in Wasingishu myself for a long time and therefore it's possible that from the primary school they're in, they can always come and be senators or legislators in this house, and to say that in this country we're looking forward not to future leaders, but to leadership even now, even within their primary school, even in the secondary school, and to really pursue good values. And I want to congratulate the teachers for taking the time out to bring the kids, because learning is not just in classrooms, but through exposure to their leadership and to other areas. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I welcome the students.
Senator Dulo Fatuma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to join you and Senator Abshiro to welcome the students both from Wasingishu and Embu. Mr. Speaker, I would like to say that, of course, from those both counties, we have very active and hardworking senators in this house. I believe maybe they are held somewhere carrying out the activities and responsibilities of their counties. But that doesn't mean if they are not here, we cannot welcome you. We are here to welcome you on their behalf. And I wish to let you know that this is a rare opportunity for schools to come to Parliament, because sometimes it's difficult for some of the schools to even manage to come to this level. But I think this is a good chance for you, especially having organized by your teachers and your school, to be here. You should appreciate and explore this opportunity and learn what you have obtained while you are in the Senate. And we wish you all the best in your studies, and especially those who are in class 8. and those who are finishing your colleges, I believe you will be able to achieve what you have earned here. And we wish you all the best, and maybe in future, you will be the leaders who will be in this house. Thank you and welcome again.
Senator Musuruve.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to join you in welcoming the learners from Uasin Gishu County into the House. And this is a neighboring county. I come from Kakamega County. And I want to say that it is good practice, Mr. Speaker, for children as young as this age to come and interact with us, to come and see what exactly happens in the Senate. And Mr. Speaker, children learn from observing, children learn from seeing, children learn from hearing. So this is just a very good opportunity. I want to commend the school for coming up with this noble initiative of ensuring that their school comes here. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that not many schools come up with such an initiative. So teachers, you have done a commendable job. And even the learners, they are very enthusiastic. And Mr. Speaker, even when they were coming to the house, I could see some of them even running to ensure that, that they come really on time when we are starting the session. When it comes to issues of time, time is very important even in schools. Time is very important in institutions. And this is something that they will also take back to the counties, that we have to be punctual in whatever we do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity.
Senators Yonga Naomi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to join you into welcoming students from Uasin Gishu County and Embu County. Mr. Speaker, it's a pleasure to see such a youth and a very cheerful students who have come to see what we do in the Senate. And it is also good. We want to congratulate them and congratulate the teachers who made this effort to bring these young, charming students and or pupils in this particular chamber. Mr. Speaker, it is not only an added advantage to them, but even to the parents who made sure that they have joined their teachers to bring them here. And it is an added advantage even to their lives to see exactly what we do here so that they can opt into it, and others that will become leaders like us to work hard and achieve what they have seen. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Next order.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, Thursday, the 25th of July, 2019. Report of the ad hoc committee inquiring into the challenges facing the tea sector in the Republic of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay.
Senator Abdullahi Ali.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, Thursday, 25th July 2019. Report of the Parliament of Kenya delegation to the United Nations Conference on Climate Change, COP24, held in Katowice, Poland from 3rd to 14th December 2018. Thank you.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Senator Cheriot.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to give notice of the following motion that the Senate adopts the report of the ad hoc committee inquiring into the challenges facing the tea sector in Kenya, laid on the table of the Senate today, Thursday, the 25th of July, 2019. Thank you.
Senator Abdullahi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Not so much. The report of the Parliament of Kenya delegation to the United Nations Conference on Climate Change, COP24. That that the Senate notes the report of the Parliament of Kenya delegation to United Nations Conference on Climate Change, COP24, held in Katowice, Poland, from 3rd to 14th December 2018, laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 25th July 2019. Thank you.
Next order.
Order number 7, statements.
Senator Kakamega County, Cleophas Malala. Deferred. No, Senator Mary Senator. Can see Senator from Nairobi creating a lot of excitement in the House, Senator Millicent Omanga.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 48-1 to seek a statement
Senator
from the
Sakaja, what is your
Standing
point of order?
Committee.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know if I heard you right, but I heard you say the Senator of Nairobi. Or from? Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to confirm there's only one, super. and
Senator from
she's
Nairobi.
very well dressed. We are from the same function, where we had a lot of our biggest integrated school in Nairobi of Muslims and Christians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the country, actually.
Thank you. Senator, proceed.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 48-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Health regarding the sale of meat with dangerous chemicals in Kenya butcheries. In the statement, the committee should state how widespread the practice of launching meat with dangerous chemical is, naming the counties that are affected. 2, explain why government agencies such as the Department of Public Health in the county governments, the Kenya Bureau of Standards, KEBS, and the Pharmacy and Poison Board have not made any effort to ensure that the food, the medicine, and other products in the market are of good quality. 3, explain the circumstances under which some governors have ordered the closure of butcheries without following the due process, thereby rendering some traders jobless. Finally, explain the measures that the government is taking to ensure that there is a coordinated approach to ensuring that good quality foods, medicine, and all other goods in the Kenyan market is safe for consumption. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Cherio Darun.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just want to lend support to this issue that is being brought to fore by our colleague, Senator Mary Senator. It's very unfortunate that Kenyans are looking up to us as houses of parliament when such grave issues about their safety are put to the kind of test that we've observed in the last few weeks. And it's really embarrassing, Mr. Speaker, that as a house we haven't considered perhaps ways of trying to solve this issue. That since it was reported, it is now 2 weeks, I believe this is the second week after this matter was brought out, and none of the houses of parliament, specifically us as Senate, because these are issues concerning health, and health is a fully devolved function, Mr. Speaker. And the fact that we haven't, in other jurisdictions, Mr. Speaker, first of all, when such an issue comes out, the first thing is that the Cabinet Secretary would have assured the country or perhaps even resign if it is confirmed that indeed Kenyans are eating poisoned meat. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to urge our colleagues in the committee that you will send this matter to be attended to treat it with extreme urgency, because Kenyans are waiting to know what will be the result of those independent tests that are being carried out. And we need to perhaps seek a solution and understand if the same body that has failed to carry out the inspection, can we really get a credible answer as a country if we send the same people to go and investigate, to confirm for us they were indeed the first who should have checked? And the fact that they failed to check and ensure that Kenyans are eating healthy meat, then we cannot trust them to give us a report confirming either the presence of these dangerous chemicals in this food or otherwise. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to urge our colleagues that later on, I know normally, Mr. Speaker, the standard time we've agreed to such issues is 2 weeks. But on this particular one, I want to request, Mr. Speaker, that you may vary that and perhaps even maybe make it 7 days or less. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wambua Enoch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to also go on record in support of the statement by Senator Mary Senator on this issue of consuming poisoned meat from butcheries. Mr. Speaker, 2 issues. One, it is really unbelievable that it took the work of a journalist to bring out these facts. And the question that this country should be asking themselves is, for how long have we consumed this meat before the journalists did the investigations and came up with this report? Second, Mr. Speaker, and as Senator Cheruiyot has said, I would have expected that naturally, when such a thing as this happens, the relevant committees of the House, including the Committee on Health, would have on their own motion be seized of this matter and deal with it and give a report to Kenyans as to the extent of this malpractice. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge that the committee that then gets seized of this matter do a thorough job, talk to all the relevant bodies, including quality assurance bodies, to ensure that the foods that Kenyans are fed are safe for human consumption. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Ali Abdullahi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a very good statement and very strong one at it. And we have realized that these problems are there. And it's unfortunate that, as somebody pointed out, that a journalist, we have to wait for a journalist to do it, while we have people who are supposed to be performing those duties. Mr. Speaker, sir, unfortunately, this one it affects mainly the people who are here and the middle and upper class, because most Kenyans go to the small butcheries or they do their own slaughtering. If we can't take care of ourselves, then I don't know who's going to take care of us. And if it is brought to the Committee of Health, we will do our best to make sure that the people concerned are able to answer these questions, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Senator Agnes Zani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also wish to join other senators in supporting this statement from Senator Seneta and congratulate her for this statement, really bringing up very critical issues. And my opinion is that it's just not probably meat. Meat was uncovered by the journalists. There might be many other things there to uncover. So I just request that they broaden, even as they investigate specifically for meat, but broaden to other consumables that Kenyans are exposed to. Look through the issue of standards and quality control. Look through all the organizations that are concerned with this matter and bring them on board. Let them explain what is happening. Why are we dropping the ball? Is it that there's a lot of work? Is it an issue of they can't keep up? Is it an issue of personnel? Is it an issue of equipment? What is the problem? Because I think this is a broader problem. Mr. Speaker, lately we also have so many new cases of cancer erupting left, right, and center.
And sometimes maybe these are the issues that are actually bringing such diseases about. We are exposing Kenyans. And if the media had not really outlined this, we might not know, would have been comfortably consuming the...
Suffer the cost of hostels.
Senator Kajwang, what is your point of intervention?
Mr. Speaker, it's a bit uncomfortable sitting next to the Senator for Migori and listening to him advocating for extrajudicial killings in the form of dealing with witches. Mr. Speaker, is it in order for that to go on record that a distinguished senator has recommended that we exterminate people who are suspected to be witches? That's extrajudicial killing that we have pronounced ourselves on in the past, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sakaja, what is your intervention?
Mr. Speaker, as you give your direction on the matter, kindly also, if you could let us know if it's also in order for the Senator of Homa Bay to defend the witches in the same breath, and whether his discomfort of sitting next to Migori Senator, who is actually his physical neighbor even in the county, should stay on record.
Other members, I think every community has a way of dealing with their own witches. So the way the Senator Migori has said, they have a way of dealing with their own witches. We leave it to them to manage them. Proceed, Senator.
Mr. Speaker, I sympathize with my neighbor. In Homa Bay, they have Association of Witches. And perhaps he is speaking on Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kajwang, what is your point of intervention?
Mr. Speaker, for all I know, in Homa Bay, we don't have an association of witches. We might have an association of night runners. Night running is a sport, Mr. Speaker. It is not witchcraft. Could the Senator for Migori withdraw those insinuations that we have witches in Homa Bay, Mr. Speaker? It's a sport.
Now, Mr. Speaker, there is no distinction from my community between night running and witches. In fact, night runners are night witches. So I sympathize with my colleague who is defending witches, but I'm more concerned with the witches who poison people through food. And
Senator Shionga, what is your intervention?
Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I think the two senators are just talking of one thing. Witches and night runners, they're just people who are in action. So they need to be applauded. Thank you.
What's your point of order? I think there's a light moment. Senator Ochilo Yako, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Basically, what we are saying, I'm not advocating extrajudicial killing. I want the committee concerned to know that these people are killing Kenyans. I want them to come with recommendations that would exterminate these people legally so that we do not have people who poison Kenyans and derive profit from them. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, this thing is not just about poisoning Kenyans. This thing is affecting tourism. People who visit Kenya for the beauty we have in this country and the splendor we have in this country are now alarmed that we will give them poisoned food. So I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, when this thing became news, our visitors will become few. They'll probably come with their own food, and they will fail to eat our food, thereby crippling our economy. So this is a very serious matter, and I'm happy with my sister Senator for raising this matter on behalf of aggrieved Kenyans, I included. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Finally, Senator Matsayo.
Shukran, Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, tokea hii nchi ipate uhuru mpaka sasa, Mheshimiwa Spika, hakuna aibu kubwa imewalenga Wakenya kama wakati huu ya kwamba Wakenya wanakula nyama zilizooza ama nyama mbovu ama nyama zilizodungwa madawa. Sisi tunasema ya kwamba Bwana Spika, kwamba maduka yale yanapatikana na hatia ya kuuza nyama mbovu, nyama zilizodungwa mashindano ili zinone ama zionekane nzuri ama ziweze kuketi kwa muda mrefu. Maduka kama hayo, Bwana Spika, ni lazima yafungwe mara moja yanapopatikana na hiyo hali. La pili, Bwana Spika, wale wanaofanya kazi wanaitwa veterinary doctors ama veterinary inspectors wanaokwenda wakizunguka katika maduka ya kuuza nyama. Bwana Spika, ingekuwa muhimu kuona ya kwamba wale madaktari wanaokwenda kuangalia kama zile nyama ziko halal, basi wale madaktari wafanye kazi yao kisawasawa. Tunajua kuna ufisadi mwingi unaendelea. Hatutaki kusema wao ni wafisadi kwa sababu bado hakuna hatua yote imechukuliwa na sheria ili kuona kwamba wamepelekwa mahakamani. Lakini tunasema ya kwamba hii upotovu wa namna hiyo ni upotovu wa kusikitisha sana. Na hawa madaktari wanaochunguza hizi nyama ama wale inspectors wasizembee kazi ili waweze kufanya bidii, na ninauliza hii wizara ambayo wizara husika.
What's your point of order, Senator Millicent Omanga?
Bwana Speaker, ni halali senator kutoka Kilifi yosema kuwa wale ambao wanakubalia ile nyama ambayo ina sumu kwenye supermarket, anasema si wafisadi. Na kweli wamekubalia hizi nyama kuwa kwenye maduka yetu. Anasema mpaka wawe pelekwe kotini ndio isemekane hao ni wafisadi. Hili hali wamekubalia ile nyama yenye kemikali kuwa kwenye maduka.
Senator Madzayo.
Bwana Spika, kila Mkenya ana katika sheria anajulikana kwamba hana hatia mpaka hadi apatikane na hatia. Na hawa madaktari ambao ni kazi zao kwenda kuangalia hawa wanyama, hao ndio wako na hatia. Kwa hiyo sisi tunasema tu ya kwamba lazima serikali wale wanaenda kuangalia hiyo hali wazingatie ya kwamba hichi chakula kinatumiwa na Wakenya na Wakenya wengi wanaweza kupoteza maisha yao. Asante Bwana Speaker.
Order, members, honorable senators. I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon of visiting students and teachers from Arunda Primary School, Homa Bay County. In our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I thank you. Senator Dulo, Senator Kajwang.
Mr. Speaker, allow me 1 minute also to welcome the students from Arunda Primary School. And Mr. Speaker, this is one of the best primary schools, not just in Homa Bay constituency, but in Homa Bay County. And Mr. Speaker, I am glad that the boys and girls sitting up there in the gallery, they've come to be exposed to lawmaking, and they've come to be exposed to the mechanics of running this nation through legislation. Mr. Speaker, I'm also glad that they had the choice of going to the National Assembly and the Senate. And in their wisdom, the leadership of the school chose to come to the Senate. They've come to the house of sober debate, the house of second reflection. And I want to encourage the youngsters that they should aspire high. I will not sit in the Senate forever. They should prepare themselves to take over the position that I've been holding over the years. But they should allow me to first serve my term and get tired, and then I can hold their hands so that they can represent the great people of Homa Bay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Fadula Dulo, your statement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, let me take this opportunity to welcome the students from Homa Bay, along Senator for Homa Bay. And let me confirm to the students from Homa Bay, you have a very active and hardworking senator in this house. So you should prepare yourself to take over from him next when he retires. Let me go to my statement, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 48-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget concerning the consistent problems being experienced by counties while using the Integrated Financial Management Information System, that is IFMIS. In the statement, the committee should, number one, clearly outline the exact problems that are currently being experienced by counties in the use of IFMIS. Number two, explain reasons for the problem of IFMIS system in counties and the possible solutions to those problems. Number three, state whether the National Treasury is aware that several counties have currently resorted back to using manual system which lacks transparency and accountability. Finally, outline the steps the National Treasury plans to take to ensure IFMIS is fully operational in counties. I thank you.
Before I allow you, Senator Ochila Yako, the previous statement will be handled by the Committee on Health. Ochila Yako.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and allow me to also add my voice to what my neighbor, Senator Kajwang, has said. I want to, on my own behalf and on behalf of the people of Migori, welcome the students from Arunda in Homa Bay County. They are my neighbors. I visit Homa Bay quite regularly. Welcome to the Senate and make the best out of your visit. Now, Mr. Speaker, this statement that has been sought by my sister Fatuma Dulo, my sister Fatuma Dulo is actually my sister. We went to school at the same time to study masters, and she's brought a wonderful statement. Most of the governors and county governments lament about timely flow of cash, and if this is not addressed, Mr. Speaker, we are going to listen time and again, or time without end, about failure to absorb the funds, claiming that these funds are remitted to them at the end of the financial year. Mr. Speaker, I want to beseech and implore the committee, which will be tasked with the responsibility of finding a solution to this, to other than looking at the technicalities, the nut and bolts of how to run IFMIS, to find how whoever is responsible for transmitting finances to county governments does it in a timely manner, in a secure manner, and in a manner that enables counties to perform their mandate. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, it is also noteworthy to know that even institutions of government like Parliament, in the month of July, you will find that there is no cash flow, claiming that things like IFMIS and all these other things stall. So it is important for, other than addressing the issue of IFMIS insofar as county governments are concerned, to address it in so far as other institutions are concerned, because we all need services, whether nationally or in the county setting. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and congratulations to my sister for raising this very important issue.
Senator Kajwang Moses Otieno.
Mr. Speaker, I will not attempt to debate the statement that has been brought by Senator Fatuma Dulo. I sit with her in the Public Accounts Committee, and we have previously invited Treasury to update us on the measures they've taken to ensure that IFMIS is fit for purpose and serves the people of counties. I wanted to suggest that as the committee deals with that statement, we broaden the perspective to look at the different information systems that are being used by counties. IFMIS is just one of them. We also have the IPPD that is used for personnel records and personnel management. We also have life forms, Mr. Speaker, which has previously been used for recognition of on-source revenue, and unfortunately, counties continue to use life forms when it does not enjoy support. It is housed in the Ministry of Labor. IFMIS is housed in Treasury. Life forms, I think, life forms has no home. It's IPPD that is in the Ministry of Labor. IFMIS is in Treasury. Life forms has no home. No one is supporting it. There is another solution called GPay. And then there are the multiple revenue collection systems that counties are using. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge that as it's committed to the relevant committee, the committee expands the scope to all the information technology platforms. I know IFMIS takes 60% of the concern, but the other little systems also, we need to ensure that there's a proper enterprise architecture, there's a proper framework for their utilization for counties. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Halake Abshiro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to support the statement by my senator, Senator Dulo, with regards to IFMIS, but also, in fact, I almost switched off my request when I heard what Senator Kajwang was saying about the other financial management systems within our counties and even in the country. Mr. Speaker, the control weaknesses that are nothing new. And I think it's very good that my senator has brought this, because it's something we've been grappling with, even in the audit reports we've read when we're dealing with the governors. Mr. Speaker, there's just mayhem with regards to how many systems are at play. So many systems are being used, but there's also mischief in how these systems are being used to suit the situation on the ground. Mr. Speaker, the audit reports on the effectiveness of IFMIS revealed such big negligence. It's not even just the system not working, but there was negligence on the part of the users and the checks and balances, as well as the levels of what do you call them, the levels of access that has given to different people. We saw that in certain counties in the past, not this time, but in the past, people who should not be having any access within IFMIS have access to them, from governors' wives to people that really don't have any authority to do this. So, Mr. Speaker, the lack of data safeguard is also another issue. We at the ICT committee had picked this and decided that we should summon the CRA and others in terms of their own revenue collection and management systems. So this is something that is very important. I think this is very timely. The committee concerned should, again, as Senator Kajwang has said, make the scope of this statement a bit wider, so that we look at all the other revenue collection systems that are being used in the counties. Mr. Speaker, there's also all the other different other systems that the counties are purchasing, even where we have free systems in place from the National Treasury. So, Mr. Speaker, I think as much as there are weaknesses within IFMIS, there's also negligence and mischief to pick and choose what is suitable at different times, and the multiple engines and the multiple use is of concern, and this House should really look at it. And at the budgeting, within the expenditure frameworks that we saw during within the audit reports, there was such big disparities, both from in all the different systems that there are. So I support, Mr. Speaker, and I request that perhaps we expand this to include all the other systems that are being used. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sakaja.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the Deputy Leader of Majority for raising this very, very important statement, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think we'll not be doing our work as a Senate if we don't critically and with time and very thoroughly look at the issue of the use of technology within our counties and this information, the IFMIS system, Mr. Speaker. And a few issues arise. Number one, technology is good, but technology sometimes is also an opportunity for those who are bright to steal, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, they say if you can't convince them, confuse them. And so many times you hear the system is down, so that people go back and revert to manual systems, and during that manual, especially the collection of revenue, a lot of theft is happening. Mr. Speaker, we want the committee to look at, number one, the adaptability. Because what we're almost having in the country, Mr. Speaker, is a monopoly because of the insistence by Treasury on the IFMI system, and that other systems cannot patch onto it. So one technology company, I think it's Oracle, is then having a monopoly even on adaptability and serviceability of that information system. Yet there are many other enterprise resource planning platforms that our counties can actually be using. Mr. Speaker, the Public Accounts Committee and the Finance Committee need to set clear standards for all counties on on-source revenue technology that they use for on-source revenue collection. Mr. Speaker, different counties are employing the method that they want, which they are designing even locally, and many times you find that it actually is suiting other interests. Mr. Speaker, I'm glad that our counties can now build capacity. I'm very happy Nairobi County has moved from using one system, and they're building the internal capacity. But even that, Mr. Speaker, needs to be based on a standardized model by the Senate, so that every county can build the capacity, but according to certain standards, and there must be an interface through which the Public Accounts Committee or the Auditor General and other institutions of accountability can be able to monitor day in, day out how much money is being collected. So, Mr. Speaker, technology is good, but it must be used for good purposes. Mr. Speaker, we opened a data center, a huge data center worth hundreds of millions of shillings in Nairobi, yet people of Nairobi are yet to feel the value of that data center that was launched by President Uhuru Kenyatta, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if you go to many towns and cities across the world, as soon as you land in the airport, on your own phone, you will be able to get an interface which tells you, welcome to this county, this is how you do, this is how you pay your parking, this is how you get information about the place, this is how, and all that information is available to you even if you're a visitor in that place. So let us look at the accountability aspect, let us look at the versatility and adaptability of this technology and understand really, is this the best system for us to force all counties on, whether they can adapt theirs, and if not, what basic standard, Mr. Speaker, that can cut across, so that Kakamega can develop their own, Wajir can develop their own that patches onto it. Finally, Mr. Speaker, there must be a standard on the amount of money being taken as commission by the companies that are being engaged to collect revenue in our counties. In some counties, it's up to 6%. Others are 10% of the commission of revenue. Yet we have a revenue authority that is national, and our counties can actually set up their own revenue authorities, Mr. Speaker. So let the law not be misused for, to create gaps for malfeasance and for theft, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
In the interest of the time we have for statements, those who will speak now will have 3 minutes. Senator Abdullahi Ibrahim.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a very important statement from Senator Dulo. Mr. Speaker, this issue of ISMIS is giving us a nightmare everywhere. Some counties, you are told that you are given 10 minutes at midnight. I don't know where they want people to become nocturnal animals to do their job at night. Mr. Speaker, sir, so many people have been arrested because of being told you have misused their signatures, and when you ask them, they say, no, somebody used my password. So as Senator for Nairobi said, there are problems here. Those ones who are experts in IT can make sure that those ones who are semi-analog passwords are misused and they steal. And this one happened in NYS scandals. So many people were arrested and later some few were charged, others were refused. I think whichever committee will be responsible for this must look into the technicalities of the whole issue and assist these counties with that. The other issue of on-source revenue, we are already dealing with a bill from Senator Agnes Zani, and hopefully it will resolve this issue because we want one system for the whole country, but the counties can do their own. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, I have a communication to make. I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon of visiting students and teachers from Narok Great Ake Primary School, Narok County. In the ancient tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful stay. I thank you. Senator Olekina, you are next, so you can combine. Approach the chair.
On 2 and 3, which we are also okay with, Madam Speaker. Madam Chair.
I propose the question that clause 23 be amended as proposed. I put the question that clause 24 be amended as proposed. I put the question that clause 24 be amended as proposed, division at the end.
Further amendment to clause 24.
Senator Farhia Haji.
Madam Chair, I drop clause 24A, I drop, similar to the committee. I also propose further amendment B and C as per the order paper.
On part 1, the amendment is dropped. Then the other one. Part A of the amendment is dropped. For part B and C, I propose that the question that clause 24 be amended as proposed. I put the question that clause 24 be amended as proposed, division at the end.
Clauses 25 to 35.
I propose the question that clauses 25 to 35 be part of the bill. I put the question that clauses 25 to 35 be part of the bill, division at the end.
Clause 36.
I propose the question that clause 36 be part of the bill. Mover, Senator Farhia. I propose the question that, sorry, Senator Farhia.
Madam Chair, I drop clause 36 because it is similar to the committee amendment.
The amendment is dropped. I propose the question that clause 36 be amended as proposed. I put the question that clause 36 be amended as proposed, division at the end. Senator Farhia, kindly approach the table.
Clauses 37 to 43.
I propose the question that clauses 37 to 43 be part of the bill. I put the question that clauses 37 to 43 be part of the bill, division at the end.
Clause 44.
I propose the question that clause 44 be part of the bill. Senator Farhia.
I propose that clause 44 is amended as per the order paper.
I propose the question that clause 44 be amended as proposed. I put the question that clause 44 be amended as proposed, division at the end.
Clause 45.
I propose the question that clause 45 be part of the bill. I put the question that clause 45 be part of the bill, division at the end.
Clause 46.
I propose the question that clause 46 be part of the bill. Senator Farhia.
I propose that clause 46 be amended as per the order paper.
I propose the question that clause 46 be amended as proposed. I put the question that clause 46 be amended as proposed, division at the end.
Clause 47.
I propose the question that clause 47 be part of the bill. I put the question that clause 47 be part of the bill, division at the end.
Clause 48.
I propose the question that clause 48 be part of the bill. Mover, Senator Sakaja.
Madam Chair, I propose that clause 48 be amended as in the order paper.
I propose the question that clause 48 be amended as proposed. I put the question that clause 48 be amended as proposed, division at the end.
Further amendment.
Senator Farhia.
Madam Chair, I propose that clause 48 be amended as per the order paper.
I propose the question that clause 48 be amended as proposed. I put the question that clause 48 be amended as proposed, division at the end.
Clauses 49 to 54.
I propose the question that clause 49 to 54 be part of the bill. I put the question that clauses 49 to 54 be part of the bill, division at the end.
Clause 2. Clause 55.
I propose the question that clause 55 be part of the bill. Senator Sakaja.
I propose that clause 55 be amended as per the order paper.
I propose the question that clause 55 be amended as proposed. I put the question that clause 55 be amended as proposed, division at the end.
Clause 56.
I propose the question that clause 56 be part of the bill. Senator Sakaja, 56.
Madam Speaker, I propose that clause 56 be amended as provided for in the order paper.
I propose the question that clause 56 be amended as proposed. I put the question that clause 56 be amended as proposed, division at the end.
Clauses 57 and 58.
I propose the question that clauses 57 and 58 be part of the bill. I put the question that clauses 57 and 58 be part of the bill, division at the end.
Clause 23.
Mover, Senator Sakaja.
Madam Speaker, I propose to drop the amendment on clause 23 so that it stays as it is.
The amendment is dropped.
Clause 59. New clause 59.
New clause 59, mover, Chairperson, Labor and Social Welfare.
Madam Chair, I propose that new clause 59 be read a second time.
I propose a question that new clause 59 be now read a second time. I put the question that new clause 59 be now read a second time, division at the end.
The schedule.
I propose a question that the schedule be part of the bill. Mover, Chairperson, Labor and Social Welfare.
Madam Chair, I propose that the schedule be amended as per the order paper.
I propose a question that the schedule be amended as proposed. I put the question that the schedule be amended as proposed, division at the end.
Clause 2.
I propose a question that clause 2 be part of the bill. I put the question that clause 2 be part of the bill, division at the end.
The title and clause 1.
I propose a question that the title and clause 1 be part of the bill. I put the question that the title and clause 1 be part of the bill, division at the end. Honorable Senators, we are reporting progress on the Committee of the Whole on the County Government's Retirement Scheme Bill, National Assembly Bills number 10 of 2018. Mover.
Honorable Chairperson, on behalf of the mover and pursuant to Standing Order number 148, I beg to move that the committee do report progress on its consideration of the County Government's Retirement Scheme Bill, National Assembly Bill number 10 of 2018, and seek leave to sit again tomorrow.
I will put the question, which is that the committee do report progress on its consideration of the County Government's Retirement Scheme Bill, National Assembly Bills number 10 of 2018, and seek leave to sit again tomorrow. As many of that opinion say aye. As many of the contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, we are now reporting progress. A report of the Committee of the Whole regarding the County Government's Retirement Scheme Bill, National Assembly Bill number 10 of 2018. Chairperson.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to report progress that the Committee of the Whole has considered the County Government's Retirement Scheme Bill, National Assembly Bills number 10 of 2018, and seeks leave to sit again tomorrow.
Mover.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. You've confused me.
The motion is seconded. You request a senator to second the motion.
Mr. Speaker, I would request Senator Sakaja to second.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question, which is that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. Honorable Senators, I put the question, which is that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Honorable Senators, we will now go back to order number 7, which is statement under part 2, understanding order number 51(1)B, to be given by the Chairperson, Standing Committee on Roads and Transportation, to issue a statement relating to the activities of the committee. Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I raise pursuant to Standing Order 51(1)B to make a statement on the activities of the Standing Committee on Roads Transportation for the period commencing 1st of January to 30th of June 2019. Mr. Speaker, during this period, under review, the committee held a total of 23 sittings, considered 2 bills, 2 petitions, 8 statements, and undertook 2 county project inspection visits, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, with regard to the bills, one was the Kenya Roads Bill, National Bills number 47 of 2017, which the National Assembly received the Senate amendments to that bill, but did not concur with those amendments. This prompted the formation of the Mediation Committee, Mr. Speaker, under Article 113 of the Constitution. The Mediation Committee on the bill failed to come up with an agreed version pursuant to Article 113 of the Constitution of that bill, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, it is important that I put it on record that the mediation on this bill failed because members nominated by the National Assembly to this Mediation Committee did not attend or commit to this committee with an agenda of finding a middle ground or a resolution or a version of that bill, Mr. Speaker, that is admissible, acceptable to both houses. Members of the National Assembly came to that mediation committee with one decision on mind, Mr. Speaker, and that is to scatter the process. And so the process just ended up being one of us being called names, ridicule, shouting. And Mr. Speaker, at the end of the day, that mediation process failed. In that period, we also considered the bill sponsored by Senator Olekina, that's on roads and pavements, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, regarding statements pursuant to Standing Order 48(1), 8 statements were referred to the committee during that period under review. One was the implication of the Lamu Port, South Sudan, Ethiopia transport, that's LAPSET corridor in Isiolo County and its residents. And this statement was requested by Senator Fatuma Dulo, who is also the Deputy Majority Leader, Mr. Speaker. The second statement was on the status of the Kajiado Mashuru Isara Road in Kajiado County. This was requested by Senator Mary Senator. Third statement, Mr. Speaker, was on the status of Namanga Road, requested by Senator Mary Senator again. The other statement, Mr. Speaker, was on the operations of JKIA from the Kenya Airports Authority and the Kenya Airways Limited. That was requested by Senator Moses Wetangula. Fifth, Mr. Speaker, was the high parking charges in institutions that offer public services, requested by Senator Dr. Abdullahi Ali. Sixth, there was a statement sought by Senator Abishiro Halake, and that was on the state of the Isiolo International Airport. The seventh was traffic offenses by foreign registered public service vehicles, that's PSVs, on Kenyan roads. This was also requested by Senator Mary Senator, and specifically on vehicles registered in our neighboring country of Tanzania plying the route between Namanga and Nairobi. Lastly, there was a statement sought by Senator Judith Pareno on the compensation for land for roads construction and environment restoration during and after roads construction. Mr. Speaker, the committee has scheduled a meeting with the Cabinet Secretary and the relevant stakeholders, during which senators who have sought these statements are going to be invited into this meeting, and they will field the questions and interrogate the answers and responses from the Cabinet Secretary, Mr. Speaker, and we will communicate that date here, Mr. Speaker, to all the senators and request them to be present so that we can address these issues fully, Mr. Speaker. One of the challenges we've been having, Mr. Speaker, just before I get there, is that when we seek statements, sometimes the responses we get from our stakeholders, and especially sometimes from the ministries, are very scanty and not with content, and such that we keep referring those statements back, Mr. Speaker, and that's why we have chosen the ideal way of having the Cabinet Secretary appear for one meeting and answer questions to our senators. Mr. Speaker, with regard to petitions, the committee considered 2 petitions. That's delayed compensation for projects that affect people affected by the projects arising from the Eldoret Town bypass, and also compensation for persons affected by the rehabilitation and capacity enhancement of James Gishoro A104 Highway Road project. Arising from the petitions, the committee held site visits and further received submissions from respective project affected persons and respondents who included the Kenya National Highways, Kenya National Land Commission, and the respective project contractors. The committee has prepared reports on these petitions, Mr. Speaker, and this will be tabled in the Senate, Mr. Speaker, within the next few weeks. Mr. Speaker, with respect to the county visits, during this period under review, the committee undertook 3 successful county visits. One was on the inspection of the ongoing construction of the Western Bypass Road project, that is in Kiambu County, the rehabilitation of an enhancement of James Gishoro, that's partly in Nairobi, and then also ending on Kiambu. Mr. Speaker, this is the road popularly known as Nakuru Road. And thirdly, the county visit to Kajiado, West Pokot, and Isiolo counties, which also included Turkana County, which this committee undertook as one visit, Mr. Speaker. During the inspection of the Western Bypass, the project in Kiambu County was undertaken on Tuesday, the 12th of March, 2019, and the primary objective was to assess the project implementation status as per the original design, the scope of works, justification for redesigning of that road, completion timelines, and compensation for the project. The committee is following up on the matters and issues that emerged during that visit. And noteworthy here, Mr. Speaker, to say just for purposes of clarity, is that one challenge that we have encountered and an issue that needs to be resolved, Mr. Speaker, is once contracts have been signed by the national government on behalf of the people of Kenya, and those contracts are signed under the arrangement of build, operate, and transfer, Mr. Speaker, then you find that project designs change, and they change to limit sometimes the scope. But that change is not also reflected in the charges that are originally agreed. And Mr. Speaker, we have had 2 cases that require review. That's the Western Bypass and also the James Geshiro A104, where works were reduced to the extent of almost 2 to 3 billion. And that is only in the quantity of the scope of works, but that is not also commensurate or reflected in what the project cost itself was, because you expect, Mr. Speaker, that when that kind of redesigning occurs and there is a reduction in what input was going to be there, then definitely there has to be a commensurate reduction in whatever was agreed upon as the project cost, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the other mission that the committee was on during these visits was to find out whether the revision of the concept design, the bypass, and subsequent reduction of the total hectares of land required from the 45 hectares up to approximately 21 hectares had any cost implications on the initial bills of quantities upon which the original contract had been signed. Mr. Speaker, that's what I just said. And C, that's to see if KENHA, the National Land Commission, could provide the list of community social responsibility projects that are undertaken, Mr. Speaker, by this contractor. The issue of CSR, Mr. Speaker, is a predominant problem within most of the projects that have been undertaken by national government. And largely, this is because, Mr. Speaker, at the time of conceptualization of these projects, the element of CSR or the component of CSR is not included, Mr. Speaker, on or inside that contract, such that at the end of the day, for example, when a project worth 20 billion, 30 billion has been signed, and that being the contract sum, it becomes then the duty of residents to go and beg the contractors to undertake projects. And Mr. Speaker, this we've seen in most of the visits that we have done and the interactions we've had with most of our people. The recommendation of this committee, Mr. Speaker, has been that going forward, the government must change its version. And when a project is being conceptualized, the element of CSR, what will these people do after they are paid those billions, at least in give back to community, has got to be included at the time of conceptualization. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, what the committee wanted to find out was the extent to which KENHA and the National Land Commission have undertaken sensitization programs on compensation of project-affected persons. Mr. Speaker, a similar problem that this committee has encountered in various parts of this country, including in Eldoret, Mr. Speaker, where squatters who have no major means of livelihood were being ejected from their small businesses, shanties, Mr. Speaker, without compensation, which is effectively a right that they should be able to enjoy, Mr. Speaker. I'm proud to report, Mr. Speaker, that the committee asserted its authority during those occasions, and in the last meeting with the National Land Commission, also with the ministry, they confirmed that even squatters, business traders, hawkers, anyone who has a stake in that project, whether they have a title deed they don't have, are going to be compensated, and awards have been given to most of them. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, some of the squatters around Eldoret were paid an amount totaling to about 300 million before even the big stakeholders were paid. Mr. Speaker, the county visit to Kajiado, West Pokot, Turkana, and Isiolo counties focused on the following matters. In Kajiado County, Mr. Speaker, we went to inspect the ongoing construction of phase 2 of the standard gauge railway with respect to compensation for demolitions at Nkoroi, environmental restoration and rehabilitation of Orosirkon Primary School in Tuala, which was condemned due to the effects of blasting in an adjacent quarry to extract materials for construction of phase 2 of the SGR, Mr. Speaker. Further, the committee followed up on the disruption by the contractor on community boreholes, Mr. Speaker. And if you allow me, Mr. Speaker, I could just put a word on this because, Mr. Speaker, this country saw and witnessed the horror of families when they were being ejected from their homes that they have built using their hard-earned money, where they have families, Mr. Speaker, children, wives and husbands being ejected early in the morning without compensation of a land that they own, of structures that they have built themselves without first being compensated. And the committee also went, Mr. Speaker, had a discussion and invited the community in Olosirkon Primary School, where this school that had been condemned in total, and children were studying and learning under trees. We invited the entire team, the ministry, and other stakeholders, Mr. Speaker, and the committee has started itself. And as of now, let me report, Mr. Speaker, that an arrangement and an agreement was arrived at that the contractor is going to, after building 4 classes, construct another 6 classrooms in that school, such that the entire of the classrooms that had been affected will be rehabilitated, and to include a borehole in Orosirkon Primary School, Mr. Speaker, to serve the school and the community. In West Pokot, Mr. Speaker, the committee went on an assessment of the county-initiated road projects, which were undertaken by the county government using funds availed through the Division of Revenue and County Allocations of Revenue Act and Roads Maintenance Levy Fund. Mr. Speaker, in West Pokot, we went and inspected a road which we would call a virgin road, Mr. Speaker, in which there was no road existing. We wanted to see what are county governments doing, and we witnessed where the county government has taken an initiative to construct a completely new road with funds allocated to the county in an area hitherto without access. And in the second visit to that county, Mr. Speaker, we'll be seeking to see has this been made a reality and has it worked. In Turkana County, Mr. Speaker, we visited to inspect the status of ongoing projects such as the Lodwar Airport, county headquarters, roads under Kenya Rural Authority, Kenya National Highways Authority, and Kura, Mr. Speaker, which is Kenya Urban Roads Authority, and those initiated by the county governments. Mr. Speaker, the quick highlight that would report in this Turkana visit, Mr. Speaker, is the state of the airport at Lodwar, Mr. Speaker, which is pathetic, which has no security, Mr. Speaker. This committee undertook and made recommendations and also issued instructions to enhance security, Mr. Speaker, not only of the airport, but of members of the public, where we witnessed that during active hours of the airport, Mr. Speaker, young children have access to the airport, where they would even be crossing the runway when an airplane is landing, Mr. Speaker. Goats graze inside the airport, Mr. Speaker, during active hours. And more so, given the state of our national security, Mr. Speaker, an airport cannot be without security and even without basic fencing facilities. Mr. Speaker, of ultimate surprise was the fact that in Lodwar Airport, with a turnover of about 400 passengers daily, there is no working fire engine. Indeed, there is no existence of a fire engine in the entire of Turkana County, but more so in the airport. And one would ask, in an airport where there are 20 flights daily, 10 ingoing, 10 outgoing, 400 passengers a day, how would an airport function without a fire engine? What would happen during a disaster, Mr. Speaker? We gave instructions. We were assured that there will be a fire engine in the next 3 months. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, we undertook the visit to Isiolo County to inspect the Isiolo International Airport. Mr. Speaker, that was in furtherance and following on the statement requested by Senator Abishiro Halake regarding the state of the airport. Further, the committee scheduled a meeting with the Cabinet Secretary, the Minister for Transport, the Minister of Transport, Infrastructure and Housing and Urban Development, Mr. Speaker. The highlight, Mr. Speaker, quickly on Isiolo Airport is indeed the cost that the government has injected into the construction of that airport is close to 3 billion as of now, Mr. Speaker. And the best definition that would have been given to the airport as of now is really a white elephant. That airport, Mr. Speaker, for a period between January and July, that's a period of almost 7 months, the airport reported to have serviced a mere 98 passengers in 7 months, an international airport, Mr. Speaker, with a runway that cannot accommodate flights that are intended for its magnitude and several other issues, Mr. Speaker, including a cost of 900 million to build a runway that cannot be functional right now, barely even having been used, Mr. Speaker. Those issues were addressed by the committee, and we have gotten assurance from the relevant stakeholders, that's the Kenya Airports Authority and the ministry, that work is being done and we are in receipt of a budget in which they intend to address those issues. Mr. Speaker, during the period of the review, the committee encountered various challenges to a large extent comprising of its operational and inefficiency and performance. Mr. Speaker, part of those challenges is inadequate responses from the executive, which I've touched on. I will not repeat it. Secondly, is non-appearance by key stakeholders, Mr. Speaker, sometimes resulting in summonses which, by far and large, are not very friendly encounters at times when they have to be enforced. But Mr. Speaker, that is the way of the law, and I would want to take the opportunity because I've seen sometimes when the committees have had in Parliament to resort to summoning of stakeholders, they arrive sometimes with a very lopsided version of interpretation of the intent of summons to mean that they're being forced to appear, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, allow me to put this on record in Senate, that we need to ensure that this impression that has been created, that Parliament functions at the behest of other arms of government, that it is okay for other operators in government, for example, PSS, CSS, not to appear, not to come and get their business done here. And Parliament is supposed to accommodate it. But once you resort to summoning a stakeholder who has refused to show up, Mr. Speaker, then it becomes a point of being begrudged. And Mr. Speaker, I think we'll be seeking even intervention from the chair there. Sometimes when summons have got to be issued, they have to be issued, and please help us to enforce that people have to appear. When they don't, then they'll face the consequences. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I wish to inform the Senate that the committee intends to carry out the following key activities during the next quarter. One is to organize a national level conference involving all county governments on assessment of the state of infrastructure, financing and implementation status. Two, to table the reports, or pending reports before the committee. And number three is to undertake project inspection visits to Isiolo, Samburu, Kakamega, Kisumu, Marsabit counties respectively. Four, the committee intends to undertake an assessment of the SGR phase 2 and a follow-up on the compensation of affected persons and the rehabilitation of the Nairobi commuter railway system. Mr. Speaker, on that one, Kenyans know, and more so this House, that the promises that have been made that we'll have a functional mass rapid transport system within no time so that we can be able to ease the traffic congestion that has bedeviled and cost us the loss of billions of shillings every year, Mr. Speaker, could be dealt with if Namata does what it's supposed to do, Mr. Speaker, according to the authority given to it. And so, Mr. Speaker, we intend to pursue this to ensure that this work is going to be done and that we are not just going to be having red lines drawn on highways where at the end of the day, it doesn't end up being functional, useful, but just mere window dressing, Mr. Speaker. We intend to follow that. Lastly, we intend to interact with counterpart committees and the Council of Governors and county assemblies on various emerging issues. Mr. Speaker, I beg to table. Thank you.
Next order. Senator Kajwang.
Mr. Speaker, there's something extremely significant that the chair of the Roads Committee has raised in his statement, and allow me also to congratulate him for that detailed statement. It's just a few hours ago that I saw him standing next to Baba and the president somewhere in Ruiru. And it shows his commitment to his parliamentary duties, that he had to leave the high table to come back here and serve the people of Kiambu. I hope the House shall note that, even as we make our comments. Mr. Speaker.
What is it, Honorable Senator Charagay?
To interrupt my good friend Chair, who is a very efficient. Do I have the mic? Chair Senator Moses Kajwang, when he says that, does it mean sitting with Raila and Uhuru is the high table more than the mandate that Kenyans gave us as the Senate? I thought this is the high calling. Can he substantiate what he means? Is it because Baba was present in that meeting, or because Uhuru was there, President Uhuru? Because what I've heard is like this being senator is the lower table, so you should substantiate that.
Continue, Senator Kajwang.
Mr. Speaker, the senator for Nandi behaves the way old women behave when bones are mentioned in a proverb. I did not even call the name of Raila in my earlier statements. I talked of Baba, And for the information of the senator for Nandi, the governor for Kiambu is officially called Baba Yao. So I probably was referring to the governor for Kiambu. But Mr. Speaker, much more
Order, honorable
substantively.
members. Order, honorable members.
Point of order.
Senator Kajwang is on the point of order, so I will not give any other point of order. Continue. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for protecting me. But I just wanted the chair to help us now to understand the way forward, now that there's an impasse on the roads bill. Mr. Speaker, a few years ago in this Senate, we had passed a resolution pending substantive passage of an act of parliament to deal with the road sector. We passed a resolution that roads classified as class A, B, and C would be for the national government, and classes D and below would then be managed by county governments, and funds would follow. A year later, the national government had failed to implement that motion that had been adopted by the House. A year later, the Ministry of Transport, or the relevant ministry, came up with a fresh classification scheme through which they attempted to reclassify roads so that the national government would remain with more kilometers of roads at the expense of counties. Then a year later, the roads bill came. And Mr. Speaker, we had hoped that the roads bill was going to sort out all these issues, all these inconsistencies, and all the anxieties that had been there in the road sector. If the roads bill discussions around mediation have collapsed, what direction should counties take? Should they go back to the earlier motion that was passed by this House? And should they start dealing with categories D going downwards? And Mr. Speaker, further, could the chair also tell us if the new classification scheme that this House rejected, and I was in the Roads Committee in the last Parliament, and I remember that we rejected that new classification scheme. Is it in place? Is it being enforced by the national government? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Charage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, I have heard the chair, the distinguished senator of Kiambu County with the most votes in this country, Senator Kimani Wamatangi, who was hosting a high delegation today when they were launching one of the president's big four agenda, which is manufacturing. Two comments only. I appreciate the report and the challenges that the Roads Committee, and I thank Senator Kimani Wamatangi for being very steadfast, and chairing such a committee is not easy, because we were together in the Kenya Roads Bill mediation, and he stood his ground. And I want to applaud him for protecting the Senate at that point. And I know he has been protecting the interest of Kiambu residents, and we are proud of him as the chair of roads. Maybe two things as a follow-up for me. In my county of Nandi, there is a contractor by the name Civicon who was given around 5 roads. And I would wish the chair to follow up with the relevant authorities, be it KERA or KENA or Ministry of Roads and Infrastructure. There are around 5 roads that were given to a company called Civicon. They were later reassigned to China number 10. Those roads are as follows: the one from Lesos to Keses, the one from Nandi Hills town to Himaki, the ones from Chepterit to Lon to Moi University, the one from Rivertex all the way to Kapkatembu. There is one from all the way from Chepteruai, Singlet, all the way to Kaiboy, and the one from Chemuswa all the way to Danger. Those roads were reassigned, Mr. Speaker, sir, but up to today, the company that were reassigned have never worked on those roads. So I would request the chair, who is engaging in animated conversation with the Speaker, Senator Pareno, those 5 roads that I've mentioned, Chair, through the Speaker, is that we need follow-up, because those roads, out of the 6 or 5 roads I've mentioned in Nandi, nothing is going on, and yet money was allocated. Company were reassigned to China number 10, and I would request the chair, because he's a frequent visitor of Nandi, and he knows Nandi County very well, to follow up on those 5 roads, because even the rainy season is ongoing, but we want those contractors to proceed. It is not a unique case to Nandi County. Go to any other county, roads were allocated, contractors were identified. Up to today, those roads be upgraded to bitumen standards have never been done. So I request simply the chair of roads, who is my good friend, to assist and be part of ensuring that the roads of upgrading most of the roads in Nandi County to bitumen standards are done. And therefore, I believe in his committee, and I hope he will be able to visit so that he can verify that there is no work going on in the 5 roads that are being earmarked for upgrade to bitumen standards in Nandi County. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, and congratulate the chair for roads for the job well done. And after this, I might decide to buy him a coffee. Thank you.
Senator Fatuma Dulo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to take this opportunity to thank
What's it, Senator Faria?
Chair for...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me opportunity. I was a bit disturbed by the comment made by Chair of Park, SAIPAC, that Senator Cherargei is behaving like an old woman. What is wrong with an old woman who has aged gracefully? Let us not use parliamentary language in this house. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, can you apologize
Senator
and withdraw?
Senator Fatuma Dulo.
On that, Chair, I don't know whether you are favoring. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me take this opportunity to thank Chair for Transport for that wonderful report. First, I really wish the chair of the committee, after having visited those counties, more so Isiolo County, to come up with recommendations that will be able to solve the challenges we have on the ground. Because I haven't seen that. And also to make sure that the recommendations are actually implemented by the relevant departments of the ministry. Number 2, we have a lot of problems in the counties, Mr. Speaker, where you will see that the roads that are being constructed by the national government are being claimed by the county government, simply because the signboards are not there. And that has created a lot of confusion in the counties. So I will request the chair of the committee to advise the relevant departments of transport to put signboards to indicate that this particular project is actually being carried out by the national government, not the county government. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I know this is a mandate of the county government, but most of the road works that are done by the county governments are substandard. And simply, this is because the county governments, they don't have qualified engineers actually who supervise these works. And yet the government continue using a lot of money in those counties in the name of actually road construction, where at the end of 3 months, that road work is nowhere. So Chair, kindly take up those issues and see how you can help counties and also members of public regarding the issues we have raised. I thank you.
Senator Imana Gertrude Msuruven.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support the statement made by the Chair, Roads and Transport. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, this committee plays a role that is very vital in many senses. In terms of economic sense, without roads, proper roads, it will become very impossible for even counties to branch out to the outside world. So when it comes to issues of accessibility, this committee comes in handily. And when you're talking of roads, Mr. Speaker, they also have the social benefits that even when it comes to development, most people want to develop along the roadside. Most people want to come up with factories. Most people want to come up with investments there. And when investments are in a county, then it means that they will create employment to the counties. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, also, we also have the education benefits of roads. You'll find that even investors who want to to invest in education. They look for places where roads are accessible. If they're not accessible, they try to see how the roads can be accessible and lead to the schools. And when roads are accessible and even learners are able to go to school, then that becomes a benefit even for this nation. But still, Mr. Speaker, I want to really pursue this committee of Senator Wamatangi to ensure that when you're talking about accessibility of roads in the counties, it must be something that is practical. Because in some counties, Mr. Speaker, you find some roads are not really accessible. And this is something that this committee needs to really pursue with the, with the county assembly, needs to even pursue at county level to ensure that roads are accessible. In some roads, you'll find, in some areas, you'll find that some people are not even able to drive to their homes. I want to give a case in point where I was not even able to drive to my own home. And even the residents around complained that, Senator, your road is not accessible. Why? And yet I come from that county. So there's need for counties to ensure that roads are accessible to the users, so that when roads are accessible, many activities will be in the county. We need to see how to ensure that people are not moving from the rural areas to come to the urban areas where there are roads, where there are investments, where there is employment opportunity. So when roads are accessible, even into the very remote areas, then it becomes possible to ensure that we retain people in the remote areas. Farming goes on, and even when farmers have planted their crops, they can easily find a way of ensuring that the crops reach to the outside world. So I want to say that this committee is doing a commendable job, and it needs to really go further and ensure that these services are reaching Kenyans at the county level. And there's need also for enough money to be sent, on roads and transport for the purpose of ensuring accessibility, Mr. Speaker, for the purpose of ensuring that we are reaching out to the common man, for the purpose of ensuring that we are reaching out to even our farmers, Mr. Speaker. You know, some of our farmers, Mr. Speaker, they plant their crops, yes, but after harvesting, the roads are impassable. They're inaccessible. So what happens to their farm produce? They end up giving to cows. They end up even selling, cheaply. In fact, there's nobody to sell to, because most people you find are in a closed community. I want to give a case in point. In Maragoli, where I witnessed, people plant a lot of avocados. And avocados are very expensive when you come to town. But when you go to Maragoli, a whole basket of it would even go for 50 shillings. And the basket could be even having 100 avocados. Why? Because they're not accessible. They're not able to reach the outside world. So what I'm saying that when roads are open, even our farmers will benefit. So the county roads need to be open. And Mr. Speaker, even when I'm talking about county roads being opened, it has to be a transparent way. It has to be in such a way that even the roads that are made are roads that are durable. Mr. Speaker, sometimes roads are made in the counties. Once it rains like this, the roads are not even passable. The roads cannot even be used. And yet money has been, spent to make those roads. So, Mr. Speaker, there is need for this committee to ensure that it goes to the counties and ensures that the roads that are serving Kenyans are roads that are credible, are roads that will not weather off maybe after one season, are roads that have it may not be tarmacked, Mr. Speaker, depending on the kind of road. But what you're saying is that the the digging, the marraming, and all that, all the conditions that are supposed to be used to ensure that the roads are, durable, should be followed. Mr. Speaker, in some counties, I want to say, and this is a committee, the committee should actually make a follow-up and see to it that all county roads are open, because we are representing the counties and the interests of the counties. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that this committee is doing a commendable job, and I want to really encourage Senator Wamatangi to press on with this task. It may not be an easy task going all corners of Kenya and all that, but do the best you can for the purpose of ensuring that your services are being delivered and delivered effectively and efficiently for citizens of this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 10, motion, adoption of the report of the Senate Sessional Committee on County Public Accounts and Investments on the fiduciary risk report on audit issues by county governments for the financial years 2012-2013 to 2015-2016.
Chairperson, you note the concerns of the honorable members as raised for further action. Senator Charagay.
Mr. Speaker, sir, can I donate some of my minutes for Senator Ochilo Ayako to move amendment? Then I can proceed kindly with your directions.
Seems you are not ready.
No, but
I now give this turn to
Mr.
the
Speaker,
request
sir.
by Senator Ochilo Ayako. He has already placed his request.
Okay, then I can proceed, Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to say, to thank Senator Moses Kajwang for this wonderful report on the fiduciary risk report issued raised by the Auditor General on Public Financial Management by the county governments for financial years 2012, 2013, 2015 to 2016. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have seen the report is very detailed and very meticulous, and I want to thank the Senator Moses Kajwang, the Senator of the Great People of Homa Bay County, and the next Governor of Homa Bay County for this wonderful and thorough and meticulous report, and we celebrate him as a chair. Mr. Speaker, sir, I've known he's very efficient, and in fact, Senate has earned respect because of his efficiency of handling audit queries across the county governors in this country. And I must note that I have attended some of his sessions, and I'm very impressed on how he has conducted the handling of audit queries. And if we have such an efficient chair, I know the accountability level and transparency of the use and prudent use of resources in this country will move into the next level. And I want to assure him, as he goes for the big seat of being governor of Homa Bay County, he will have our full blessings, and some of us will be in government. I will ensure timely disbursement of resources to his county when he's the governor. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to say I've looked at the report. Unfortunately, the issues I've been raising are the same issues that are affecting counties at the same time, Mr. Speaker, sir, even up to date. The critical issues that the report they have raised is the same issues that the second generation of governors are facing. There is a way we must try and fix all these issues. If you talk about on-source revenue, it's sort of reallocating of resources. If you talk about pending bills, if you talk about wage bill, if you talk about collection and missing tax targets, and I've seen President Uhuru Kenyatta say there is no money, although we are clamoring for more money to counties. He just spoke a few hours ago by saying there is no money in the country. If you talk about spending and funding Council of Governors operations, all these issues that the committee has faithfully handled is the same issues that today, Mr. Speaker, sir, we are still discussing here. I want to agree that this report has raised very critical issues, and I'll run through, because I know, Mr. Speaker, sir, there are many colleagues who would want to support and discuss this bill and debate on it. Mr. Speaker, sir, one of the problems that we still face in our counties is where county governments just reallocate funds, which is very, very unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, sir. Like, for example, in my county, the Nandi County Assembly in April adopted a report where there is misappropriation of about 13 million that was meant for bursary. When the CC in charge of finance was pressed, he said he reallocated 13 million to buying fuel that were meant for lorries. This is a major problem that is affecting most counties, and I think the PMF Act is very clear. Public Finance Management Act is very clear, Mr. Speaker, sir, that all the money that is meant for specific project must be retained there until and unless there is a process that has been provided for a Public Finance Management Act. And I know it is not unique to my county alone. Other counties, governors go to a point, they allocate some money to drugs, even in Samburu, then they shift to other things, they allocate to roads, then they decide now it becomes recurrent. That is why you find the absorption rate of development, like my county, according to Auditor General's report, 1.7 billion was returned to Nairobi that was meant for development. And yet governors are busy reallocating development money to recurrent money. As we talk, according to the wage bill report, for example, in my county, because I don't want to cast aspersions to other counties, because I have facts about it. For example, my county, by the time the previous governor Lagat left the office, the wage bill was at 35%, which was acceptable. That was around 1.8 billion or 1.9 billion. But when the new governor Sang came, he raised it up to 2.3 billion. That is around 49%. Where is the money meant for development? And I think these are some of, and there are many counties, there are quite a number of counties that their recurrent expenditure that goes to the wage bill is much more than it is being allocated, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, the second issue is on the pending bills, and I agree, I am told by the chair of PAC that the Auditor General, as he enjoys his sunset time in the Office of Auditor General, is supposed to appear before the Senate on Monday to answer on the report that he did on the pending bills. It was shocking to the country, Mr. Speaker, sir, that out of 108 billion or so that was meant for pending bill, there were a lot of billions that were meant to be fake pending bills. Even in my county, close to 400 million was being said that it was was being called fake pending bills, Mr. Speaker. And I think the chair and the PAC on Monday will join you so that we can critique the Auditor General and question why is it that, who's this person that would want to claim fake pending bills? Where are they taking money? And we want to add the investigative authority. I've seen them, they are coming with zeal. The DPP and DCI, they should investigate the fake pending bills that are in our counties. And somebody must be held accountable, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, the third point, and I think that one has been said, the Auditor General, it rose from 60 billion to around 108 billion with these 3 to 4 years. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have seen another unique thing which was common in Nairobi City County, the huge legal fees. You find most counties are outsourcing the legal services. That has become a big problem in our counties, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, counties should not outsource their legal services. As we talk today, under my chairmanship, we have the County Attorney Bill. The County Attorney Bill will create positions that will assist county governments to create vibrant legal departments that will allow them to do their things that are within the law so that they don't risk or being taken to court. I know most county governments, Mr. Speaker, sir, have been taken to court either on HR issues, either on issues of procurement, either on issues of hiring, and many others, Mr. Speaker, sir. As a legal committee, we hope the National Assembly, of course, we appreciate that the National Assembly are sometimes mischievous, but I hope they will pass the County Attorney Bill and be able to set up and create county attorneys. Number 4, Mr. Speaker, sir, is on the ballooning wage bill. I started with it, Mr. Speaker, sir, and I agree that we must, as a Senate, agree. If there is a bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, which we are considering with the Labour Committee and my committee on ensuring that we create the law on county public service boards. This county public service board will assist in streamlining the hiring of human resource in the country, and these things of requesting for work on the street and in funeral should stop, because I've seen the leader of ODM has just requested for a job for the former MP of Katanga, Peter Kenneth. So there should be a law. And I know Senator Kimani Wamatangi can confirm that since he was there. Therefore, we are looking, even today in the afternoon, Mr. Speaker, we were looking at our county retirement bill, and I'm happy that it has went through the process of a committee of the whole. We hope this will bring to an end. You know, Mr. Speaker, sir, the MCS also have an issue with their pension, and I hope we'll be able to factor in. Yesterday we were discussing on our retirement package for the councillors, and I think, Mr. Speaker, sir, this bill will allow them to be able to continue to get their money. The fifth, Mr. Speaker, sir, because I want to run through so that I can give my colleagues opportunity, is the funding by governors. And this is where the catch is. Most governors are funding the operations of Council of Governors. Yet we have the intergovernmental, which through the Ministry of Treasury should be funding the governors. In the audit report on Nandi County, for the 9 months, 2.6 million was being sent to the Council of Governors operation. But when you look, Mr. Speaker, sir, that money is being used to hire choppers. Where are these governors flying to? I thought that they should be creating more money for development. They should not be flying around. How do you fly when there is no money? We are now busy fighting for more resources to go to counties. We are fighting for 335 billion, and I want to thank the chair of finance. He has published a bill that 335 billion should be added more to the counties. But now, the governors are living in opulence. They are flying around with choppers. They are tired driving around. I think this issue of funding by the county governments to Council of Governors should stop. We had expressed this to Council of Governors Chair, Governor Oparanya, that he must ensure the money is being funded through Treasury. It should not be funded through the money that should be meant for Wanjiku, should be meant for Tieno, should be meant for Kiprono, in funding for bursary and drugs and what have you, Mr. Speaker. And I think that is very important. I know my county, I'm told according to reports, according to Auditor General, 2.6 million, was used to hire a chopper for the governor. The last point, Mr. Speaker, sir, is on the transitional authority. Up to today, Mr. Speaker, and I think those people who chair the transitional authority, Mr. Speaker, must be charged and surcharged, because there is no register of assets and liabilities in Migori County up to date that was inherited from the previous authority, like Kiambu had more municipalities. Where is the register that will show Kiambu County there were these assets, there were these liabilities? And I think the people who chair the transitional authority must tell us where is the assets and liabilities of the counties. They must be charged, because people lost tractors, they lost land, they lost a lot of assets. Up to today, no one has accounted for, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that this report is very, very, very good. And I want to urge my colleagues to support and ensure that we move. And I think finally on the audit of committees, Mr. Speaker, sir, the counties to comply with internal controls and mechanisms, they must develop in a place that will ensure, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to thank my Nandi County Assembly. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, they adopted report on ad hoc on the disappearance of cement, on the tires, on the iron sheets that were manned, and the loss of 200 million that the ECD. I want to commend them from the floor of the Senate and say that they are doing their work as a primary oversight. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, I can invite your county assembly and my colleagues to visit Nandi County Assembly to learn on how to become the primary oversight and ensure they protect the public resources that were entrusted to them, Mr. Speaker, sir. Because if you find children are out there in the cold and in the rain, then pneumonia will affect them. Mr. Speaker, sir, because somebody somewhere has stolen their cement, has stolen their sand, has stolen their iron sheet, has stolen the nails, that has stolen 200 plus million and 13 million that were meant for the bursary. And I want to say, according to the recommendations of the ad hoc committee of Nandi County Assembly, the relevant investigative authorities like DPP, DCI, and the EACC must move in with speed. They have recommended that lifestyle audit must be done to the governor and other senior government officials. They should be done ASP so that the justice can be done for the people of Nandi County. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator George Ochula yako.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to speak to this motion. Mr. Speaker, I also had intended to move a motion proposing an amendment to this report. I do not know, and I will go by your guidance, whether to move that first, because I would wish the amendment to be dealt with is when we look at the substantive.
Honorable Senator, the proposed amendment is not connected with the substance of this motion, and its effect will be to amend the standing orders through the motion. The standing orders have a provision for their amendments. Therefore, your amendment is declined.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, then let me just talk to the main motion that is before this House. Now, Mr. Speaker, this committee, the Public Accounts Committee of the Senate, is a very important committee. And Mr. Speaker, I must appreciate the fact that this committee has done a commendable job. This committee has worked tirelessly to ensure that a modicum of accountability is realized within the mandate of our August House, the Senate. Mr. Speaker, oversight is one of our constitutional and primary functions, and oversight we must carry out. If we do not carry out oversight, Mr. Speaker, we as a House risk the possibility of being relegated to a vestige, being relegated to irrelevance, being relegated to a mere talk shop. Now, Mr. Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to commend tremendously and with a lot of humility the good work that my neighbor, Senator Kajwang, has done as the chair of this committee. I also want to commend the very good teamwork that has been exhibited by the exemplary contribution made to bringing or coming up with this report by his committee members. I also want to, on my own behalf, appreciate the cooperation, the extent to which it happened by those who appeared before this committee, because if those fellows did not appear before this committee, there would have been nothing to discuss. So I commend them for complying with what the law stipulates that they should comply with, and to have appeared before the distinguished committee of the Public Accounts Committee to try and be accountable and respond to issues that were brought before the committee. Now, I also must commend you as the Speaker of the House for supporting this committee. This committee, in my understanding, is the most important committee. And Mr. Speaker, lately you have heard some characters say that the Senate is not doing its rightful work. Those characters evaluate the work of Senate on the basis that the Senate does not prevent the runaway graft, the runaway governance issues, and the runaway malfeasance in counties. And they do so rightly because year in, year out, the Auditor General captures the same issues that are supposed to have stopped. Oversight, in my understanding, Mr. Speaker, is effective when supreme supreme audit institutions do not capture repeat offenses that are done by those that are being oversighted. If you look at the period in question, 2013 to 2016, you will find that it reads the same way every year in, every year out, what these counties, all of them do. It reads about irregularities done by all the counties. It's as if all these governors went to the same school, were taught by the same teacher, and were choreographed to carry out the malfeasance in the same manner, the same year, because they seem to think that no action will be taken against them. So when other evaluators of the performance of Senate say that Senate does not work, it is because these problems, these violations are captured year in, year out. Now, Mr. Speaker, having said that, I am happy that we have, at least through our committee, captured some of these things for the year 2013 to year 2016. However, this report indicates certain limitations that need to be addressed. One of the limitations that I have captured in this report is that this report has come so late in the day. 2013, 2014 went and passed. Nothing happened. 2014, 2015 passed. Nothing happened. 2015, 2016 happened. 2016, 2017 happened, and we are now in 2019, is when we are discussing violations that were done in that period. I do not want to fault the committee that has done this good work, but we must admit that the scope of coverage, the intensity of coverage has suffered certain limitations, maybe because of factors that perhaps are not contained in this report. In my understanding and my own suspicion is that the Public Accounts Committee of the Senate has been overwhelmed. We have 47 counties. We have limitation in terms of membership in this committee. We have limitation in terms of personnel who are supposed to assist the committee. And perhaps if the committee had an enlarged membership and more support, they would have been able to cover the period that the Auditor General audited public accounts that were given to counties. They would have covered the period in a timely fashion, and we would perhaps in 2019 be discussing a report that is current. Now, Mr. Speaker, if you even set aside the issue of whether the report is current or not, you will notice that from the report, Mr. Speaker, the audited accounts of all county assemblies were not attended to. I do not want to fault the committee for not doing so. I have in my previous life served in other committees. I know the constraint that committee members have, but a lot of monies, if you look at the reports of the Controller and Auditor General, of the Auditor General, you will find that a lot of public money is also lost when county assemblies meet without purpose, when they pay allowances to themselves without following procedure, or when they engage in activities that are contrary to the law. So it would be important for this House to as well, because those are areas of enormous expenditure. The county assembly where I come from, which is Migori County, spends annually public money amounting to 750 million, and that is not pocket change. Homa Bay spends a similar amount of money, and all of these other counties spend so much money. So it would be important for our very important oversight committee to also have opportunity, to also have time, to also have resources dedicated to looking at the accounts of our assemblies. Mr. Speaker, our counties also have investments and other bodies that use public funds that are in these counties. If you look at this report for the period under review, you will find that our Public Accounts Committee did not get sufficient time to look at public accounts and audits in relation to those areas. And the officers who are in violation did not come face to face to come and explain what they were doing before Senate. And I think this being something that has been happening because we have not given capacity and resources to our Public Accounts Committee, allows these officers, the accounting officials in counties, the pleasure of misusing public money, knowing that they will not be made to account for the same amount of money for the Public Accounts Committee. Mr. Speaker, that has led to a proposition, and it was the proposition that was informing the suggestion that there would need to have an amendment to our standing orders so that our standing orders would be able to expand the membership of this committee so that this very important committee would be able to have subcommittees, and those subcommittees would be able to address some of those thematic areas of audit and oversight so that we are in tandem and we are comprehensive in terms of holding institutions to account for the public funds that we give them. Mr. Speaker, we know very well that there is wastage, and that in order for this wastage to be stopped, the people responsible for this wastage must visit this house and must visit this house and seriously be given an opportunity to be heard on why these wastages have been going on year in, year out. Mr. Speaker, I've been looking at the audit queries that arise in my county. and I've looked at the ones that arise in the assemblies of my county. Mr. Speaker, every year, committees of that assembly leave the assembly claiming to go somewhere to write reports. When they leave the assembly claiming to go to other places to write reports, when the auditor invites them to present records that they were involved in such activity, Mr. Speaker, those records are not available. When they avail some skeleton records, those records indicate that not everybody attended, yet money was taken out in cash to give presumably the ghost attendees. So, Mr. Speaker, if we as a House are relying on the county assemblies to carry out some primary oversight, to keep on check, to oversight the county government, but the assembly themselves are carrying out their business as if they were criminal enterprises, Mr. Speaker, we would be failing in our responsibility if we did not give time and attention to some of the practices that are prevalent in the assemblies, so that the assembly members can come before the distinguished committee chaired by my good friend Senator Kajwang and are able to explain why they are involved in graft, why they allow graft, yet they are the ones who should be leading by example and by also ensuring that they follow the law. If they do not follow the law as the assembly, then it would be very difficult for them to even discuss the conduct of county executive committee members. It would be very difficult for them to discuss and hold to account county officials like the County Service Board and other organizations within the county that are supposed to account directly to them. So it is important that we get back to this and we ensure that we have comprehensive audit, we have a timely audit, and that we also have a follow-up mechanism to ensure that counties are not involved in repeated violation of the regulations, the laws, and the Constitution in so far as handling public finances is concerned. Now, Mr. Speaker, I want to commend the Public Accounts Committee of the Senate for doing a good job. I am relatively new to the Senate, but I had the pleasure and opportunity to participate in the proceedings of this committee when they invited my governor. And Mr. Speaker, my governor appeared before that committee in his most arrogant sense. He was abrasive and rude to the committee, but I'm happy that the committee members maintained their cool and were able to cause him to respond to the issues that were pertinent at that particular time. However, Mr. Speaker, it was reported that the records for 2017, 2018 of Migori financial transactions amounting to 1.5 billion were not traceable. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge the committee to ensure that people of Migori are protected, that their funds are accounted for, and that the usage of those funds are done in accordance to law, and that the value for which those uses are put are values that are beneficial to the public. Up to now, I am not in the know as to whether how the funds, 1.5 billion Kenya shillings, were utilized, and I would like this particular committee, as they continue with their oversight, to ensure that that has been accounted to. Mr. Speaker, when those records disappear, when they are burnt the way the governor claims that they were burnt, the same way the Kitui County government is claiming that the records got burnt, Mr. Speaker, it's a criminal offense not to protect those records. So it is important for we as a House, through the committee or otherwise, to ensure that crimes associated with the destruction of public documents are followed to the end. Because if we allow counties to destroy public record, if we allow those responsible for the safekeeping of these records not to account for the activities, then I can assure you, to avoid audit queries, they will all ban these records and there will be nothing to be done, because they will attribute that to the acts of some surreptitious or unknown persons who have burnt records. So it would be very important for me and for the people of Migori and also to this House to ensure that we insist that our county governments and the people responsible bring the records in a timely way, bring proper records. And if they do not do so, then I am happy that the court made a decision yesterday that governors who will be charged with offenses relating to what they do at their place of work should step aside, and people who are more willing to be faithful and committed to adherence to the law should take that opportunity and continue running the counties like their deputies. So it would be very important for this committee to ensure that governors who do not want to follow the law and who may be charged for not following the law insofar as oversight and accounting are concerned are brought to book, knowing very well that they'll be asked to step aside from their offices, so that we have an orderly county, we have an orderly mode of operation in counties, and we have accounting, and we have responsibility and accountability that hold everybody to account. With those very many remarks, Mr. Speaker, allow me to congratulate Senator Kajwang and to congratulate his very good neighbor there, Senator Wamatangi, for the good work they have been doing. I can see it has caused trouble in Kiambu, but trouble based on good work. So the governor of Kiambu, be warned, when you are charged, you must step aside and allow that deputy of yours you dislike to run the county. Governor of Homa Bay, be warned, and Governor of Migori, be warned that if you do not obey the law or follow the law, and your governor of Samburu should be warned that he should step aside. And that warning goes to all governors who have a penchant of violating or disobeying the law. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Getru Musuruve.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for giving me this opportunity to actually support Senator Moses Kajwang for coming up with this report. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that it must be known to all Kenyans that in carrying out an audit report, the Senate is not out to catch anyone on the wrong. Because, Mr. Speaker, the audit report is good because it helps us authenticate our work as a Senate. And we are mandated constitutionally, Article 96, our role, to represent the counties, the interests of the counties. We are also supposed to actually allocate national revenue that we are supposed to determine the national revenue that goes to the counties. So in our purpose of doing what Article 96 demands, the audit reports are very important because there's need for us to corroborate the audit reports and our functions in the Senate to see whether we are actually getting anywhere for the purpose of ensuring service delivery to Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that the audit reports are very important. One, they ensure efficiency of those in office, in public office. Apart from even ensuring efficiency, they also ensure accountability, they also ensure credibility, and so the audit reports would actually be an eye-opener, whether things are going on well or not. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that the audit report is good because it actually reduces, and I want to say that it reduces the incidence of corruption. Because you cannot say that the audit reports can actually help phase out corruption, but the incidents will actually reduce. So as a Senate, we need to see how can we keep reducing until we eventually eliminate, because eventually that is where we are heading to. Now, I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that even governors themselves should know that when the Senate goes to do an oversight, it is not a witch hunt. It is just for the purpose of ensuring that we are helping them to ensure that whatever money goes on and whatever programs go on in the county are aligning to the amount of money that was allocated in the counties. For the purpose, sometimes, Mr. Speaker, we do not want a situation where we are also sending little money in the counties so that even the counties are starving from doing the project that they're supposed to be doing. So, Mr. Speaker, an audit report is good because it will bring out some issues that will really be an eye-opener for the purpose of ensuring that we are representing the counties and the interests of the county governments. Mr. Speaker, I also want to say that the audit report is actually very independent and objective. When Senator Kajwang goes, to carry out an audit report, he cannot predict what to find. But the reports, the findings he gets from the tools that will be there, the audit tools that will be there, the books of records and all that, will be an indicator of what is happening in the county. So after doing an audit, that is when now they can say, yes, this is the report we found. So it is a very objective, very transparent, and well-meaning process. And I want to say that even these tools that Senator Kajwang used on financial audits, performance audits, investigation audits, advisory audits, and all that. They are tools that help in promoting credibility of the programs that are being done in the county. They are tools that also help to see that whatever amount of money that was taken in the county has been used for the intended purpose, so that from the audit report, it's possible to know how much more money ought to go to counties. And if there's any question, then the queries ought to be actually addressed. And even when governors are called on board to explain about some queries, it is not with bad faith. It is just for the purpose of ensuring transparent, accountability and credibility of the officials who are actually mandated to carry public funds. And that is why sometimes when shocking revelations come from the Citizens and Audit reports, of course, the Senate the auditors will have emotional stability. Emotional stability for the sake of the people of this country, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I also want to speak on some issues that came out in the audit report, like the issue of contractors of pending bills. Mr. Speaker, pending bills should not arise. There is need for contractors to be paid when they've completed their jobs. There is need for suppliers to be paid when they have done their jobs. So the pending bills in the counties should actually not be there. They should be addressed, and they should be addressed within that financial year, so that the pending bills do not spill over to the next year. And even, Mr. Speaker, as you're talking about even contractors, even the issue of contractors being paid upfront before the job comes to terminal, that should not arise. It should be, in fact, the audit reports maybe should show a staggered kind of payment, so that if the contractors did something at the base level, they're paid at the base level. If they continue to the next level, they're paid at the next level. If they now reach their optimal, if they reach, if they complete the project, then they're given the optimal. But the issue of contractors being given the optimal before they complete even the work, it is unfair to Kenyans. It is unfair for this nation. It is unfair for the county governments. So this should not happen in counties. Mr. Speaker, apart from the pending bills, I want to speak on the issue of, the old authorities. Before the county governments came in, these authorities already had properties. There is need even for the properties to be identified. Where are these properties? And even when you're talking about the properties, how much are the properties? And Mr. Speaker, if there's any kind of compensation that ought to be done, the compensation should take into account the value of money at this moment, not at that moment, Mr. Speaker, because money depreciates. So there is need for compensation to be done, and to be done in a manner in which the all authorities will also not go at loss. Mr. Speaker, I also want to talk about the issue of human resource. In the audit report, you'll find that a lot of money went to paying, salaries and all that. Mr. Speaker, this should not really arise. In fact, there is need for counties to look for mechanisms of ensuring that they're catering for the wage bill, because the county governments have two ways of getting revenue. They can get from the national revenue, and then they can also get revenue from whatever tax that they collect, and program that they collect in the county governments. So there is need for them to devise mechanisms of ensuring that salaries are paid, so that whatever money comes, at national level, this money should go to development. And I'm speaking on this issue, Mr. Speaker, because it is so clear that even in the counties, there are so many things that ought to have been done, so many developments that are just stagnant. One of the things that I went to the county at one point, I saw in some counties, there are no ECD schools. And yet, that is a function of the local government. In some counties, you'll find even water, learners are not able to access water. This should not happen. In some counties, you'll find also that even residents are not able to access water. Mr. Speaker, water is a basic need. It is not something we can debate about. It is something that is mandatory. It is something that is obligatory. People must get water. And even when they're getting water, it must be clean water, Mr. Speaker. There are some counties where there is no water at all. And I don't know how people survive. Even in some schools, Mr. Speaker, in the counties, there are no water. There's no water. So there's need for money to go to such issues. And Mr. Speaker, I also want to talk about the issue of oversight. When it comes to the issue of oversight, we are not supposed to have a weak assembly, Mr. Speaker. MCAs need to be empowered. They need to be empowered so that they're able to do their oversight role. When you go to the county, you'll find that some MCAs actually are not even doing their role. Some MCAs have forgotten their roles. They're doing something different. They've been pocketed, and they have actually abdicated their work. If they have not abdicated their work, then they have forgotten. If they have not forgotten, then they're not aware. There is need for capacity building of MCAs on issues of how they can oversight in the counties. And apart from that, this capacity building, Mr. Speaker, there is need for them to be empowered financially to do that. Mr. Speaker, the issue of oversight, you cannot oversight on the media. You cannot oversight on paper. There is need for them to physically go and oversight the projects and question and bring issues on board and ask. I went to this county, there was no water, there's money that was allocated for water, where did the money go? I went to this ward maybe X, there is no health center, yet there's money that was allocated for health centers, so what exactly is happening? The MCAs need to physically see the issues on the ground. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, I remember yesterday we went to the County Assembly of Kakamega with Senator Malala, Senator Mutula, and Senator Shionga. As we were going there, we were just trying to build capacity of MCAs so that they are able to know that they actually need to do the oversight. Like in some cases, issues were coming up that there are hospitals where pregnant mothers, lactating mothers are sharing beds. Some are even delivering on the floor. Mr. Speaker, where did a woman even give birth on the floor? It is uncalled for. It should never happen. In a country where we are talking about universal health care for all, Mr. Speaker, there is need for this oversight and real oversight in the counties so that for the purpose of ensuring that development is reaching to Mwananchi. And Mr. Speaker, we do not want people from the counties, patients from the counties, to travel all the way to Nairobi Hospital, Kenyatta Hospital for referrals. There's need for these services to be right within the counties. And when they're right within the counties, Kenyans will see that we are concerned about them. Kenyans will see that we are serious about universal health care. But when you're talking about universal health care, and yet people are giving births on the floors, and yet people are sharing beds, and yet there are no bed sheets and all that, and yet there are no drugs. Mr. Speaker, it should never happen. drugs should never lack in hospitals. In fact, Mr. Speaker, as you're speaking, drugs should be absolutely free. They should not be free in quotes. They should be absolutely free, Mr. Speaker, so that we are able to serve Kenyans. So, Mr. Speaker, if the audit report shows that there was money allocated for drugs, if the audit report shows there's money allocated for level 5, there is need also for indicators of that money to be there, that yes, this money was taken to the county government, and it is money X. And when the county government got the money, these are the developments in level 5. These are the indicators of success. And indicators of success should be accompanied with public participation, Mr. Speaker, so that Kenyans can speak to these issues, Mr. Speaker, so that even when money is taken to the counties, Kenyans can say, yes, money was, was taken to the counties, and we are benefiting from the money that was sent to the counties. Mr. Speaker, as a Senate, we cannot just sit on our laurels. We must do our oversight job. We must ensure that we are defending Article 96 of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. We are here because of Kenyans. We are here to represent the county governments and the interests of the county governments. We are here to represent that vulnerable citizen, that vulnerable mwananchi, that helpless mwananchi. And we need to know from the audit reports, Mr. Speaker, is that vulnerable person taken care of? Even when you're talking about issues of vulnerability, Mr. Speaker, the issues of affirmative action has to come in. We need to know, Mr. Speaker, even from the money allocated, was there money allocated for persons who are marginalized, persons with disabilities, and have they been factored, or are they also being service providers, or they're just getting handouts, Mr. Speaker? These are things that we need to really speak about. These are things that we need to interrogate as a Senate. These are things that we must take with a lot of seriousness and the seriousness that it deserves, Mr. Speaker. So I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that I truly support this report, and I commend Senator Moses Kajwang for coming up with this authentic document that actually speaks to our role, that actually brings out our role, and that actually seeks to show that we are doing our role up to the latter. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Senator Faria Haji.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to contribute to this report. And I wish to thank Chairman of PAC, Senator Kajwang, for doing an amazing job. I sat through a session yesterday, and I was impressed in terms of how those issues were handled. Mr. Speaker, first of all, there are certain small, and I want the chairman of SEPAC to listen, because I have some recommendation which I think can make a difference in terms of how we move forward to ensure that we have more accountability in the counties. One of the issues, I think we should bring a legislation to have, I'm sure there is something that exists already in terms of internal audit within counties. The counties are not implementing that. And then, to have an internal auditors within the county is not good enough. We need some committee members who are independent from the governors, who look at the reports produced by the county government and take that report to either to MCAs, and also, such a committee can work even hand in hand with the Auditor General, because in the accounting standards, auditors are allowed to rely up to some extent the report of the internal auditors who are there permanently to make sure that everything progresses well. And I think also, even, controller of budget, I think should play a greater role than what they are doing right now. Because if they are the ones who are approving all expenses, why are we hearing money withdrawn from Exchequer, and they are completely irregular payment? I don't know how that arises, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also feel that governors are running county governments like their own shop to take whatever they want and whenever they please. Mr. Speaker, so this House must pronounce itself to protect devolution, Mr. Speaker. In that absence, Mr. Speaker, Kenyans, like the way National Assembly was commenting the other time, that actually counties squander money, and as a result, they should not be given money. Mr. Speaker, if the squandering continues, regardless of the fact that national government, the squander is even higher, then people will look at county government differently, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I urge our committee that is supposed to look at the issues of corruption to be much more vigilant if we are truly expecting to take care of counties and their government and devolution. And Kenyans have pronounced themselves emphatically in 2010 in wanting their own government, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I recommend the committee for doing a brilliant job, and they ensure that that happens. Mr. Speaker, the other thing that I wanted I feel proud that the High Court has pronounced itself in terms of governors staying out of office when they are charged. Mr. Speaker, why I think that is a game changer is because if they continue staying in office, they will interfere with evidence unless that evidence is secured very well, Mr. Speaker. So I am very proud that these things are done well. Mr. Speaker, the other thing is accountants and auditors are trained the same way, Mr. Speaker. So sometimes, because sometimes they can't even catch the accountant because they already know what they are looking for and they take care of it, especially if you find people from my profession are very honest people, but the few rotten apples that are there, if they want, they can hide evidence and have a proper documentation the way the auditor wants, meet all the requirements, and then the auditor will not see anything. What will be the game changer is also to have like a different approach by Auditor General, where they go and check projects in terms of what was delivered. If they say a hospital X, that is this meter and this story building and this number of beds and all that details is given, and they go and visit and verify that fact. To verify in itself is not good enough, Mr. Speaker. They have to have a mechanism where they even have the satellite coordinates of those buildings so that no any other can resemble that, so that the governors do not have an opportunity to duplicate the same project and claim money 2-3 times. And Mr. Speaker, that happens, Mr. Speaker. And unless we have some of this legislation in place, then we are doing disservice to the county government, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support, and I urge this committee to be steadfast in terms of ensuring that corrupt governors do not get away, Mr. Speaker. This House, we are paid through the taxpayers' money, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, in our oath of office, we are expected to follow the rule of law, and we are expected also to ensure that the governors do the same. Mr. Speaker, in few minutes, if time allows us, I'm going to explain how wages have been skyrocketing, and there is a very clear legislation where the wage bill is capped, Mr. Speaker, with a lot of impunity, Mr. Speaker. Governors continue to violate those laws, and there is no accountability, Mr. Speaker. And we sit around and we feel like our hands are tied. Mr. Speaker, this House must pronounce itself to ensure that county government and the people, the Wanjiko, the Halimas, the Onyangos, everybody else should be protected, and the Mwakios as well should be protected by this House to ensure that the counties deliver for them. At the end of the day, the money for counties is for governors to do some work for the Mwananchi, and not for them to please, like Senator Musuruve was talking about hiring choppers and everything else. Mr. Speaker, we must have value for money in our counties. And Mr. Speaker, a lot more needs to be done for us to have an accountable government in our counties. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, there being no other requests to comment on the motion, I therefore call upon the mover, Senator Kajwang, to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank all the members of the Senate who have contributed to this motion. I know there are very many others who would have wished to contribute, but probably because of the timing and the pressure of other business in the House, they have not had an opportunity to comment. Mr. Speaker, I have taken note of all the suggestions made by the senators, and as I mentioned when I was moving this motion yesterday, this is the very first fiduciary risk report that this Senate has done. And I mentioned that it might not be perfect, but from the comments that have come from members, I can see very many ways in which you can improve this report going forward. Mr. Speaker, that report has also illustrated something around improvement in the opinion of the Auditor General on counties. In the first 3 years, Mr. Speaker, most of the counties had adverse opinions and disclaimer of opinion. But we have seen in subsequent years, particularly in 2017-2018, which even though is outside the scope of that report, that at least we have 2 counties with unqualified opinions and more counties with qualified opinions. I am a believer that things are going to get better when the scrutiny by Senate becomes more stringent and when the scrutiny by county assemblies becomes more stringent. Mr. Speaker, we must go look ahead and ask ourselves whether as a House you want to deal purely with financial audit reports or performance audit reports. We have had a conversation with the Auditor General that in future, this House probably should be looking at performance audits and county assemblies be looking at financial audits. We must come up with guidelines as a House that will draw a line between the role of Senate and county assemblies as far as oversight is concerned. And Mr. Speaker, I believe that Senate ought to look at consolidated financials coming from counties. That is a provision in the PFM Act that the Auditor General shall present a report on the consolidated financials. Consolidated would mean the executive, the assembly, and all corporations and funds established in the county. That Senate would focus on value for money, that Senate would focus on special audits, while county assemblies could look at the specific fund accounts, specific county corporations, and the audit reports for the executive. Mr. Speaker, I would also like to mention that certain court rulings in the recent past, we have celebrated a few, but there are others also that have had the effect of shackling county assemblies. For example, many assemblies are incapable of concluding the process of impeachment of CECs, thanks to a court ruling that then placed the decision of the assembly at the whim and mercy of governors. Mr. Speaker, if county assemblies cannot deal with CECs who are involved in all sorts of misadventures, then it clips their role in oversight. County assemblies cannot summon governors. And sometimes we blame county assemblies for not calling governors before them. But it is as a result of court rulings that governors can only appear before the Senate. And it's only CECs and CEOs who appear before assemblies. Mr. Speaker, if the county assembly is a legislative authority at the county level, why should we deny them that power and right to summon a governor? A governor only appears before a county assembly when there are impeachment proceedings against him. What kind of oversight is that takes away the power of county assemblies? And again, Mr. Speaker, there was the recent decision that said that county assemblies should oversight on-source revenue, while Senate oversights nationally allocated revenue. As I had mentioned last week when I presented the report of the Public Accounts Committee, we consider that view to be obiter dictum, and we are not compelled to comply with it, because in our view, it poses serious practical challenges of implementation. And also when we looked at the judgment and the subsequent orders that came from the court, that issue on on-source revenue did not form part of the final orders. Mr. Speaker, Senate must be proactive so that we move from being morticians coming in 3 years after to physicians who can come in before things get bad. I hope that things will get better. I am confident that on issues of human resource management, if we implement the recommendations of the CAPS exercise, capacity assessment and rationalization for the public service, for defunct local authorities, if we implement the reports of the county assets and liability verification committees, and on pending bills, if we have a clear view of the actual pending bills, we'll be able to reduce some of the fiduciary risks coming out of the counties. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I wish to invite all senators to a meeting with the Auditor General next week on Monday. This might be his last meeting with the Senate because he will be retiring in the month of August. Let every senator come and query the special report on pending bills, because there are some very interesting trends in those reports which, if left unchallenged, we are going to open a floodgate for corruption. Mr. Speaker, I conclude by thanking all senators and also by requesting the Speaker to delay putting of the question to a later date pursuant to Standing Order 61.3. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Kajwang. I defer putting question, and the question will be put on 31st July 2019. Next order.
Order number 11, motion renaming of Murang'a University of Technology to Kenneth Matiba University of Technology.
Honorable Senators, I defer order number 11 as the Senator Isaac Maura is not present. Next order.
Order number 12, motion, staff rationalization in counties.
Senator Dr. Agnes Sani, you have 17 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And let me just start from where Senator Kajwang left it, when he said that the CAPS report should help us to structure human resource management within the counties. But there hasn't been a lot of progress in terms of recommending the implementation of the recommendations that were given. There hasn't been enough effort so far that has been put, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that enough impetus is put in terms of employment, redeployment, rationalization, redistribution of jobs, transfers within the counties, voluntary, for example, separation, allowing people who can actually leave certain jobs to do so. Mr. Speaker, you might recall that when we were in Kisumu, it was actually, I think, Governor Anyang' Nyong'o who said that maybe counties have to begin to think about how they're going to offload some of the people, or at least be able to restructure and find a way maybe to seek also for voluntary retirement from some of the workers. I'd already formally moved the motion and already started, so I'll just proceed. I just wanted to start with that point. But this particular report that was put into operation through a national and county government coordinating summit on 19th June actually was focused on ensuring that we come up with very key human resources and structural changes that will be affected, or that will affect or will enhance the proper management of human resources within counties. And further to that, an institutional framework was established, and this is what we're referring to as CAPS. CAPS is the Capacity Assessment and Rationalization of the Public Service Program. It was an intergovernmental steering committee. It was launched on 14th of July. It was launched by the president, and there was a lot of impetus that this program should actually just create order. So the program was officially launched on 1st of September, and the respective governors also participated. And that program was meant to have already been completed. It was meant to be carried out between April 2016 and 26th of May 2017. So from 11th April 2016 to 26th May 2016. And of course, it had all the various issues that were concerned to ensure that the issue of human resource, we keep talking about it over and over again. And we know that quite a number of the human resources were actually taken over from defunct local authorities. But the whole issue of streamlining, because this again has a direct correlation on another very important component within the counties, and that is the wage bill. And as much, and insofar as we have a wage bill, a very huge wage bill, which we can't correlate again with deliverables from the various people who work within the counties, then we have a problem. And a report that was put across, I think, some time back, and Senator Faria, who is going to second this motion, is going to project more data in terms of how the counties have performed as far as human resources are concerned, either by being having, for example, human resource facilities within their counties, having a very huge wage bill way above the recommended wage bill in those particular counties. So we have a county HR management audit report 2017-2018, and it mentions various counties: Baringo, Nairobi. We have counties like Kirinyaga, for example, where the county had unauthorized 10 administration officers' positions against the proposed staff establishment that indicated that there was to be only 2 positions. We have the case of Bomet, for example, in June, where the payroll audit revealed 213 new employees with a monthly gross salary of 11 million within 1 year under that review. However, the vacancies were not advertised and recruitment not carried out by the County Public Service Board. Then we have other counties, Kisumu, for example, where the county executive had an increase of personnel allowances of 845 million from the previous year, without a clarification of how that figure changed. And other many counties. But bottom line of this whole thing is that if we're going to have all these employees within a particular county, then it's important that, 1, there's a control in terms of how they're hired. 2, there's a systematic output that they are meant to come out with. 3, that finally recurrent expenditure, which is very key, doesn't take up everything, including avoiding or including ensuring that many counties are not able to conduct their development projects. Mr. Speaker, this has come up over and over again, that in many counties, they haven't been able to do that. Further, specific counties such as Nairobi County, Machakos, Garissa, Kisumu, Wajir, Baringo, Narok, Nakuru, Nyamira, staff salaries consumed in excess of 75% of the total expenditure, over and above the set limit of 35%. This is provided by Regulation 25 of the PFM, County Government's Regulations 2015. And therefore, the flouting of this specific limit of 35% to 75%, we see is more than that double amount that is expected within this particular regime. So it becomes very difficult. In fact, the audit reports and many of the reports show that counties have hired more than 70% of staff, far more than what is expected. The other issue is that, again, most of these have not followed the specific requirement of the 30%, no more than 30% of the vacancy at entry level to be given to members of ethnic groups that are not dominant in their precincts. And this has gone up to 70%. The whole issue of management and human resource management, Mr. Speaker, is not new. And there are countries that have made a breakthrough. When we go through the literature, we have the case of Rwanda and the case of Ghana, and specific programs that they've come up with that have enhanced to ensure that they are able to coordinate. In Ghana, the government in 2014 established an interministerial coordinating committee. And also in Rwanda, likewise, they were able to come up with a mechanism to ensure that through good governance and devolution, a governance review of 2018, they were able to address these issues to the point, Mr. Speaker, and this should be something that should be able to motivate us, that Rwanda, in the efficiency of government spending coefficients that were put together from the World Economic Forum Executive Opinion Survey, Rwanda actually managed to be number 5. Kenya, on the other hand, is at number 70. We have the last country as Venezuela, 136 in this particular index. So it is possible. So this motion actually just requests and advocates for 2 things to happen. that this Senate resolves that the Public Service Commission, Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee, and the Council of Governors provide a comprehensive report, because I think we haven't had a follow-up mechanism to ensure that this happens. The progress report should be the progress and implementation status of CAPS program, indicating the county governments that are compliant and those that are not compliant. And then the number of employees in each county government, showing the amount spent as wage bill vis-a-vis recurrent expenditure budgeted for financial year 2018 and 2019. And these reports should be submitted to the Senate within 60 days of the resolution. Mr. Speaker, this is very important because we're trying to create the level of order and good governance within a county government that will enable us now to contain wage bill. It's been a big topic this afternoon here, to contain the wage bill and be able to push some of that money to development, to the development projects, which are very, very key, and for which devolution actually envisage that let the social, cultural, economic outcome of the people in the counties, let them gain as a result of devolution. I beg to move, Mr. Speaker, and request Senator Faria to second.
Senator Farial.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to second. And I wish to thank my sister, Senator Zani, for picking this topic. Actually, how I ended up seconding her was I was also thinking of the same motion. And when I went to director, they told me that she's also doing so the best thing. So I approached her so that I can also contribute what I think about this issue. Mr. Speaker, first of all, when people are recruited within the county, I'm talking about counties that did not inherit even very big wage bill, like my county. The county council then did not have all that, so many people employed. So at least some counties were blessed to have lesser staff, who inherited lesser staff. But Mr. Speaker, some of these issues were now, the governors now came, they recruited, and then there's certain criteria as required by the law in terms of in selecting the appointment by the Public Service Board. There are certain criteria, including candidates, the standards, value, and principles set out in Articles 10, 27, 56C, and 232(1) of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, it also prescribes the qualification for holding or acting in an office. Mr. Speaker, the experience and achievement attained by the candidate. Mr. Speaker, also conduct of the candidate in view of the relevant conduct and ethics and integrity. Mr. Speaker, and then, given all that, some of these counties have recruited people using those criteria, I'm assuming. And then another governor comes in, and they were within the threshold or sometimes less than 35%. And then another governor comes and recruits to an imaginable level that I'm going to read later on, because for me, I did further analysis using the controller of budget data to come up with a very, scary statistics, Mr. Speaker. Because, Mr. Speaker, some of these things, if you don't take care of them properly, the laws require that 35% of the money should be used for staff at maximum. And then it also requires at least 30% of the money to be used in development. Needless to say, the remaining 35% is for service delivery. For example, there is medicine in the hospitals. There is, you have to provide medicine, you have to provide that services, you have to provide in terms of agriculture, the outreach services, providing the seeds, ensuring that there's technical people to give advice, and lots of other things as per Schedule 4, the services that are required. And then, Mr. Speaker, in terms of projects, there is need also to put value for money. You know, most of these governors recruit more people for them to sit idle in the offices. If, for example, let me even give you an example, Mr. Speaker. If some counties have gone, like I'm talking about the county of Wajir, I have checked as of, the last quarters of 2019, when I checked the audit controller of budget report, it shows that it is 65.14% of the budget. Now my question is, how will they even deliver services, let alone do any development project? Mr. Speaker, these are, let me even put the whole issue into perspective. For example, 65% is taking care of only 35%. How is that logical in any sense, Mr. Speaker? It's very illogical, Mr. Speaker. And I don't want to believe that those county people do not have people who can do the analysis I am doing, because they equally have very competent people who can do this analysis, but they are ignored. Mr. Speaker, my other question is, now that these governors have clearly, the ones who found, the defunct county government and they inherited a very big wage bill, we can understand them. How about the ones who have inherited clean bill? Even sometimes the former governor was within the 35% threshold, or even some governors were there in the last term, they are serving their second term, like for example, the county of Turkana, the county of Siaya, the county of Makueni. The governors have not changed, but as I will read, their wage bill increased 10% and above. And I'm going to name and shame today. But there are some county governments, and some of them who are new, they have taken their county to different level. They have not reduced that drastically. And Mr. Speaker, allow me to use a Swahili saying, if you allow me, Mr. Speaker, kidogo kidogo ujaza kibaba. You just take a little steps that make a difference, and in the end, that will make a difference for the county, for those counties, Mr. Speaker. One of the ones that I want to pick out is county of Tharaka Nithi. They have reduced the wage bill from the last term to this term by 3.7%. It's a very small amount, but that is somebody who's willing to do something about it. If he continues reducing the same rate, in 5 years, that governor would have reduced 15%. And right now, if he was serving a second term, or if he's a new governor, his percentage was 60%, but he reduced by 3%. Now, if you continue like that, then you can reduce up to 15%. So that means his wage bill can reduce from 60 to 45%, Mr. Speaker, by the time he is done. Mr. Speaker, another county that I want to commend, because I know that it is a governor that is serving the second term, he reduced his wage bill by 2.38%. Mr. Speaker, in Nyeri governor, Mr. Speaker, who was even a deputy governor who just ascended to power, Mr. Speaker, through unfortunate circumstances, but now he's doing a good job in terms, as far as wage bill is concerned, is Nyeri governor who has reduced his wage bill by 2.06%. Mr. Speaker, Narok County has reduced the wage bill by 0.51%. I opted to mention these 4 counties because in a special way, while everybody else was, haywire in terms of increasing the wage bill, they have made an attempt to reduce.
Honorable Senator Faria, you will have 7 minutes to continue seconding this motion when it appears in the order paper. Honorable Senators, it's now 6:30 p.m., time to adjourn the House. The Senate therefore stands adjourned until Tuesday, 30th July, 2019 at 2:30 p.m.